LoveLore Library. Chapter 951. But. He turned and looked at Yun Xiao. I'm very interested in your cultivation method. I wonder if you're willing to leave with me. I can help you become stronger. Yun Xiao looked coldly at the old man and said expressionlessly, I refuse. Kid, don't be in a hurry to refuse me. Your talent and strength are indeed not bad. You're also very powerful. You could actually use your own strength to forcefully tear open the mysterious Sound Valley Elder's imprisonment space. I admire this. But you've provoked a very powerful enemy. If you want to protect the little girl next to you, I can help you. But the condition is that you leave with me. Yun Zhao's voice was low and domineering. I can protect her. The old man narrowed his eyes. Don't you want to become stronger? The word stronger has a strong allure to many people. So, the old man believed that once he said this, Yun Xiao would not be able to refuse. But he was wrong. Yun Zhao's face was as cold as ever. He was not moved by any words. Sigh, the old man sighed softly and shook his head helplessly. A melon that's forcefully picked won't be sweet. I won't force you to join my force. But when you've thought it through, you can find me anytime. Yun Zhao's heart contained his coldness and arrogance. It was impossible for him to make him bow down to him. So, he would not choose to join any force. He would only create his own empire. How about this? I'll show you a shortcut. The old man smiled. The most powerful people in the Wuhui mainland are Holy Spirit practitioners. If there are no strong enemies, you won't be able to improve. In 2 days, a passage will be opened. Once you enter that passage, you will go to an even more powerful world. The old man from the mysterious Sound Valley and I came from that place. Obviously, the old man admired Yun Xiao very much. Naturally, he was willing to help him. The last time this passage opened was a few years ago. This time, it will open in 2 days. If you miss this chance, you'll have to wait for a few more years. Yun Xiao was silent. He felt the girl next to him tighten her grip on his hand. He subconsciously held her cold palm. Feng, let's go. He turned to face Yun Luofeng, and his cold eyes instantly became gentle. Yun Luofeng nodded slightly. Before she left, she subconsciously turned her head to look at the old man in the flaxen robe who was stroking his beard. The old man wasn't angered by their rude actions because he understood that Yun Xiao would surely want to head to another world. At the foot of the mountain, in a cozy room, Yun Xiao carefully placed Yun Luofeng on her lips and lowered her head to kiss the young girl's thin lips. His kiss was extremely gentle as he tossed and turned, calling out the girl's name. Feng, the man's voice was deep and magnetic, easily teasing people's hearts. Yun Xiao, Yun Luofeng turned his head to avoid the man's gentle kiss. Are you planning to leave? The man's body stiffened. His dark eyes stared at the girl under him and he fell silent. For a moment, the atmosphere in the room was filled with tension. Feng, after a long while, the man's voice rang out. You won't stay in the continent of no return forever. If you go to another world, you won't be able to protect yourself. I want to help you scout ahead. Chapter 952. Yun Luofeng raised his head and was greeted by a handsome yet callous face. The man's eyes were filled with determination as he stared at her. A light breeze blew in from outside the window and his jet black hair fluttered in the breeze. The man's features were deep and his thin lips were slightly pursed. His alluring abs were faintly discernible under his half-opened shirt. I promise you. The young girl's determined voice rang out in the silent room. Also, I'll go see you as soon as possible. This man, no matter what he did, was for her. He was afraid that he would be bullied when he stepped into a foreign world. That was why he wanted to explore the way for her first. With a man who fought so hard for her, what right did she have to not work hard? All right. The man lowered his brows and smiled. I'll wait for you there until you come. Yun Luofeng pursed her lips and smiled. She hooked her arms around Yun Zhao's neck and turned around to press him down. Yun Zhao, the next time we meet, let's have a child to play with. Originally, she wanted to find Yun Zhao and go back to get married, but it was too late now. If she missed the opportunity in 2 days, she would have to wait another 2 years to go back to that world. So, she could only postpone the marriage until a few years later. Sure, Yun Zhao's eyes were full of smiles. When the time comes, if you give birth to a son, I'll teach him how to protect his mother. If you give birth to a daughter, then I'll protect you and your mother. As soon as she finished speaking, the bed curtains were lowered and 2 intertwined figures could be faintly seen. The next day, Yun Zhao left the inn. Yun Luofeng packed up his luggage and was about to return to the Yi clan when he suddenly stopped. He frowned and said, Xiao Mo, did we leave something behind? Xiao Mo's enigmatic voice sounded from within his soul. Master, you've only cared about making love with Yun Zhao. How would you have remembered that you've left a pitiful loyal subordinate in a cave? Yun Luofeng was stunned for a moment before he remembered what he had forgotten. I forgot about Qin Yuan. Poor Qin Yuan, he was still bitterly waiting in the cave. Who would have thought that Yun Luofeng would forget about him after seeing Yun Zhao? Thinking of this, Yun Luofeng turned around and quickly headed toward the forest at the foot of Mystic Sound Mountain. By the time she found Qin Yuan, he was already dying from hunger. Although he was a spiritualist, he had not reached the point where he could not eat. Mistress. Seeing Yun Luofeng appear, Qin Yuan's eyes brightened. He struggled to get up from the ground. How is master? He's fine now. Yun Luofeng glanced at Qin Yuan. He just needs to leave for a while. Qin Yuan, you'll follow me during this time. Yes, mistress. Qin Yuan didn't ask about Yun Zhao's exit route. After all, this wasn't something he could care about. Mistress, Qin Yuan rubbed his hungry stomach and asked embarrassedly, is there anything to eat? Yun Luofeng threw the food he bought along the way to Qin Yuan. After eating, we'll head back to the Yi family. Yes. Qin Yuan respectfully received the food and sized up Yun Luofeng curiously. He had a feeling that the mistress's power seemed to have increased a lot after her trip to Mystic Sound Valley. Yun Luofeng paid no attention to Qin Yuan. He sat down cross-legged in the cave and began to cultivate again. Chapter 953. Other than the first time she broke through to the middle stage of the Venerable Realm after dual cultivation with Yun Zhao, she had gained quite a lot from the subsequent times. In addition, Yun Zhao had been busy all night, so she was on the verge of breaking through. She only needed an opportunity to successfully advance to the high stage of the Venerable Realm. The high stage of the Venerable Realm was only one step away from the Holy Spirit Realm, but it could still be considered an expert on this continent. It was no longer as easy to bully as it was in the beginning. Suddenly, Yun Luofeng opened his eyes. His starry black eyes shone with an incomprehensible light. Above the Holy Spirit Realm. So what? One day, she would also step into this realm. Moreover, she also believed that this realm was not far from her. Yi Clan. In a quiet courtyard, Yun Qingya was sipping tea. His posture was elegant and noble, but there was a hint of a smile between his cold brows. Sitting opposite him was a handsome man. This man's facial features were deep and distinct, and his sword-like eyebrows contained a murderous aura that came from fighting on the battlefield all year round. However, facing an old friend, he restrained his aura. Qingya, we haven't seen each other for many years. Unfortunately, your brother and sister-in-law are no longer here. Recalling the past, Jian Qingwen couldn't help but sigh. Time was like water, and the years flew by. In the blink of an eye, more than 10 years had passed. The brothers and beauties of the past had all been lost with the passage of time, disappearing in the long river of history. Yun Qingya's brows carried a hint of worry. He put down the teacup in his hand and said indifferently, "Big brother and sister-in-law were killed by a villain. If not for this, Fenger wouldn't have been wrong for so many years. If Bai Ling and his wife were still alive, no one in the entire Long Yuan country would dare to touch a single hair on Yun Luo Feng. Who didn't know that this sister-in-law of theirs was gentle on the surface, but she was actually unyielding on the inside? How could she allow anyone to hurt her daughter? Brother Jian, you didn't come here today just to reminisce with me, right?" Yun Qingya smiled faintly. Her indifferent voice was like a gentle breeze, as if it could heal the wounds in others' hearts. Jian Qingwen smiled bitterly. "I just feel depressed and have nowhere to vent my anger, so I came to find you. I guess you should have heard that the tournament will be held in a few days. Our Tianyun nation's younger generation is really useless. Because of this matter, the ministers have been quarreling with each other. I came here to seek peace and quiet. Brother Jian, I advise you not to look for my little Luo Feng for this matter." Yun Qingya smiled. "Otherwise, with this girl's personality, if any country offends her, she will definitely turn this country upside down. If it was an ordinary person, he would definitely blame his niece for her arrogance." However, Yun Qingya was not like that. Although he said this, his tone was full of pampering and indulgence, and there was not the slightest trace of criticism. The corner of Jian Qingwen's mouth twitched. Indeed, with Yun Luofeng's personality, how could he be willing to be wronged? If she was bullied by a prodigy from another country during the league tournament, she would probably beat him up on the spot. At that time, the sky would really be turned upside down. I think His Majesty wants little Luo Feng to save the situation. I will definitely go back and persuade him. Otherwise, I predict that in the near future, there will be many countries that will jointly complain about the Heavenly Cloud Nation. Jian Qingwen rubbed his chin, although, I really want to see little Luo Feng beat up those lawless people. Chapter 954. At this moment, a treacherous voice suddenly sounded, "His Majesty has arrived." His Majesty. Jian Qingwen was stunned for a moment and immediately stood up from the pavilion, his eyes filled with doubt. Why did His Majesty come at this time? Just as Jian Qingwen was puzzled, the emperor dressed in casual clothes walked over. There were two other people with him. After seeing the two people, Jian Qingwen's expression instantly changed. "Your Majesty." He suppressed the doubt in his heart and respectfully bowed to the emperor and asked, "I wonder why your Majesty has come to the Yi clan." "Today, I have come for Miss Yun. Has she not returned yet?" The emperor looked around with a doubtful expression. Jian Qingwen's expression became more and more unsightly. "Your Majesty, you have come this time to let little Luo Feng participate in the league tournament. This. I am afraid it is somewhat inappropriate." "Why is it inappropriate?" The emperor's eyes were filled with doubt. This was a chance for Yun Luo Feng to become famous on the continent. Why would Jian Qingwen, who had a good relationship with Yun Luo Feng, oppose it? Furthermore, other than Yun Luo Feng, there was no other youngster in Tianyun Nation who could win this matter. Jian Qingwen hesitantly looked at the two people standing beside the emperor. He couldn't possibly say what Yun Luo Feng would do in front of these two people, right? Little Luo Feng is still young. "Your Majesty, please find someone else." "No matter." The emperor clearly didn't know Jian Qingwen's worries. He waved his hand and said, "I believe in her." Jian Qingwen almost cursed it out loud. Letting Yun Luo Feng participate in the competition, wasn't that helping her make an enemy? How could Jian Qingwen agree to this? What? Your nation has no youngsters who can participate. The man standing on the left of the emperor finally lost his composure and coldly said, if there is no one who can participate, then you should have said so earlier. Lest I waste time here. In addition, the other nations have already sent out their teams. Only you are left. Lord Tian Kuei, Jian Qingwen frowned, please give us a little more time. We plan to find geniuses among the citizens to participate. The two envoys that came this time were not from Lanxiang Nation. After all, with Lanxiang Nation status, they did not have the qualifications to join the competition organizers. In the mainland, there were 3 top countries. Every league tournament was hosted by these 3 countries. Furthermore, the ambassadors from these 3 countries would also go forth to invite the other countries. These 2 envoys were from the Tianhui Empire. The Empire. Only the top 3 countries could be crowned with these 2 words. The other countries did not deserve to be crowned with the word Emperor. From this, one could see the prestige of these 3 countries in the continent. Humph. Tian Kuei coldly snorted and said arrogantly, your heavenly cloud nation's princes and princesses, as well as ministers' daughters, can't participate in the league tournament. How can a genius from the common people have such strength? I specially came to invite the heavenly cloud nation this time, and this is your attitude. By the way, I'll tell you something else. After a discussion among the various countries, they've decided to ban the last 3 countries. In other words, the last 3 countries would disappear in the long river of history. As for the territories of these countries, they were divided up by other countries. The emperor's expression changed when he heard this. He quickly composed himself and said, Tian Kuei envoy, give me 3 more days. I will choose a genius within 3 days. Chapter 955. I have already given you a few more days, but you have delayed it again and again. Now, you no longer have a chance. Either you take the young people and follow me now, or I will immediately make your Tianyun nation the last. Tian Kuei raised his chin and said condescendingly. As the envoy of the most powerful country, he did not need to put the emperor of a small country in his eyes. Lord Tian Kuei. Jian Qingwen frowned. Just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Tian Kuei's impatient voice. Isn't there a woman called Yun Luofeng in the Yi family? She is so powerful that even the envoy of Lanxiang Nation was beaten away by her. Why don't you call her out now? I want to see what is so strong about this woman. Jian Qingwen's frown became tighter and tighter. A princess of Lanxiang Nation was married to the emperor of the Tianhui Empire as a concubine. Moreover, the princess was very favored by the emperor. Now that the envoy was making things difficult for the Tianyun nation, it must be her intention. Yun Qingya's fingertips gently stroked the edge of the teacup, and her eyes swept over the 2 envoys indifferently. At this time, he suddenly caught a glimpse of a snow-white figure slowly walking in from outside the courtyard, which also made his eyebrows full of smiles. Feng you're back. The man's voice was as elegant as a song, absolutely beautiful. Hearing this, everyone turned their heads and looked at the beautiful girl who was slowly walking over. When the 2 envoys saw Yun Luofeng again, they were stunned. In the harem of the Tianhui Empire, there was no lack of beautiful women, but compared to the girl in front of them, the difference was like the difference between white clouds and mud. Even the princess of Lanxiang Nation, who was favored by the emperor, could not be compared. Such a beautiful woman, how could she appear in a small place like the Tianyun nation? Second uncle, Uncle Jian, what happened? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows slightly, and his lazy voice was filled with evil. I just came back, and I saw so many people gathered in the Yi family. I can't even have a good rest. Yun Qingya smiled slightly. Feng you don't have to worry about them. Go back and rest. By the way, where is Xiao, Yun Qingya's cold eyes flashed with surprise when she did not see the man beside Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng paused, then said, he has something to do, so he can't come back for now. Miss Yun, the emperor saw Yun Luofeng appear, and his heart was filled with joy. You came back just in time. The tournament will be held soon, and all countries will nominate dozens of young people to participate. I wonder if you can represent Heavenly Cloud Nation. In front of Yun Luofeng, the emperor was very polite. After all, this girl saved the empress, so he asked for Yun Luofeng's opinion. If she wasn't willing, he wouldn't force her. Yun Luofeng thought for a moment. Fine, I agree. She needed an opportunity to break through. She wondered if this league match would be her opportunity, Little Maple. Jianqing frowned and pressed on Yun Luofeng's shoulder. There are too many experts from each country. Don't force yourself. He wasn't referring to the young geniuses, but the experts of the various countries. Because he understood that no one in the younger generation was Yun Luofeng's opponent. Only those experts from the various countries might attack her out of anger and humiliation. In comparison, Yun Qingya did not stop Yun Luofeng. He understood that as long as Yun Luofeng decided on something, no one could stop him. Hee. Tian Kuei sneered. After so long, your Heavenly Cloud Nation has only taken out one person. Where are the other geniuses? Chapter 956. The Emperor was troubled again. In the entire Heavenly Cloud Nation, only Yun Luofeng and Yun Shao could afford it. Now that Yun Shao was not in the Yi family, who else could help? My big brother can, Yun Luofeng said lightly. As for the others, I will choose them. The Emperor suddenly clapped his hands. How could he forget about Yi Shimo? With Yi Shimo's talent, he was more than qualified to take on such a heavy responsibility. Miss Yun, the others you mentioned. The Emperor thought for a moment and felt that it was better to ask. Yun Luofeng raised her eyebrows. I will choose 20 people from my subordinates to participate. The girl's words stunned the two messengers for a moment, then they immediately laughed out loud. Did they hear wrong? This girl wanted a group of subordinates to participate in the competition instead of the geniuses. How much talent could those subordinates have? How could she boast about taking them to participate in the league? Miss Yun, the Emperor frowned. The league has a requirement that only people under the age of 25 can participate. Do your young subordinates have the strength? The young people chosen by each country were the best among the geniuses. They were extremely powerful under the age of 25. There were countless geniuses who were celestial spirit practitioners. But she actually wanted her subordinates to participate with her. Yes. Yun Luofeng's words were concise, but it showed the confidence in her heart. Hearing this, the Emperor suddenly clenched his fist. Good, then I believe you. As for the selection of the geniuses to participate in the league, I will leave it to you. Yun Luofeng nodded lightly. I need to make some preparations today. I will leave tomorrow. Okay, then you should have a good rest tonight. The Emperor's face finally no longer looked as worried as before. He turned to the two messengers and asked, what do you think? Tian Kuei snorted coldly, then I will give you one more night. We can leave tomorrow morning. After saying this, he waved his sleeves and turned to leave. The other messenger, who had not said a word, also followed and left. Before he left, he looked at Yun Luofeng. He did not know if it was an illusion, but Yun Luofeng felt that gaze made him feel very uncomfortable. It was as if he was being stared at by a poisonous snake. Fenger. Yun Qingya slowly walked to Yun Luofeng's side and lovingly rubbed her head. No matter what you do, second uncle will support you. But you must remember, your grandfather and second uncle have always been here waiting for you to come back. Yun Luofeng smiled faintly. Second uncle, don't worry. I know what I'm doing. It's good that you understand. Yun Qingya smiled. However, second uncle is not saying this to make you restrain your personality. There's nothing bad about your personality. Second uncle just wants you to understand that we will always be your family. We can be relied on and block all dangerous enemies for you. Yes, uncle. Yun Luofeng smiled. Her evil smile was very beautiful and moving at this moment, even more dazzling than the setting sun. Second uncle, I will do my best to survive for you. If she died, her loved ones would inevitably suffer misfortune. Only if she lived and became even more powerful would people be fearful of her. By the way, second uncle, go and find the old man. I have something to give you. Yun Qingya was startled. She nodded and said, all right. Jian Qingguen scratched his head and chuckled as he watched Yun Qingya turn around to look for the old man. Little Luofeng, since you still have matters to attend to, I'll be leaving first. Chapter 957. Wait. Yun Luofeng suddenly called out to him, Uncle Jian, if I'm not wrong, you should have reached the middle stage of the Venerable Realm by now. That's right. Jian Qingguen nodded, I just broke through to the middle stage a few days ago. After hearing this, Yun Luofeng took out an item from his interspatial ring and handed it to him. This fruit can help you advance to a high level, but I have a request. You can't let anyone know that this fruit was given to you by me. Jian Qingguen looked at Yun Luofeng in surprise. You just said that this can help me reach a high level. Yun Luofeng nodded. At this moment, Jian Qingguen was so excited that his entire body was trembling. He reached out his hand to take the fruit from Yun Luofeng and swallowed hard. Xiao Luofeng, Uncle Jian owes you too much. Jian Qingguen had always believed in Yun Luofeng's words, so he naturally did not doubt the authenticity of his words. While I'm away, protect Grandpa for me. Yun Luofeng raised his head, this is my second request. Only when there were more and more experts around the old man would she be able to leave the Wuhui continent in peace. Don't worry, even if I, Jian Qingguen, die, I won't let anyone touch a single hair on the old man. Jian Qingguen put away the fruit and solemnly swore. Who would have thought that Jian Qinggwen's words would come true today? Indeed, in the future, he would use his own body to block the sharp thorns that were stabbing towards the old man. At that time, he kept his promise, just like when he swore an oath in front of Yun Luofeng today. Thank you. Yun Luofeng smiled and solemnly thanked him, I'll leave my old man to you. Ha! Jian Qingguen laughed out loud, Xiao Luofeng, why are you being so polite with me? Even without this fruit, because the old man is my brother's father, I will protect him for my brother. You can rest assured about this. At this moment, Yun Qingya, who had gone to inform the old man and the others, had already walked over slowly. From afar, he heard Jian Qinggwen's words, and a smile appeared on his cold face. This guy had always been loyal and trustworthy. He valued loyalty more than anything else. Otherwise, his brother would not have become close friends with him at first sight. Feng, your grandfather and the others are already waiting for you in the hall. Yun Qingya retracted her gaze and smiled faintly. Let's go. Yun Luofeng turned and walked towards the main hall. Her white robe was even whiter than snow. In the front yard, the old man waited anxiously at the door, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. He was originally drinking tea with the Yi family's old man, but who knew that Yun Qingya would suddenly come to tell him that Yun Luofeng had returned. He hurriedly abandoned the group of old fellows and ran over. Originally, he had planned to head directly to the backyard with Yun Qingya, but because his speed wasn't as fast as Yun Qingya's, he had left him here. Jun Fengling and Yi Jingchen looked at each other and stayed by the old master's side with peace of mind. Both of them had smiles on their faces, and their gazes were fixed on the courtyard door in front of them. Suddenly, Yun Qingya's figure appeared before their eyes once again. Beside the man, who was as cold as a song, was a beautiful girl. The moment he saw the girl, the old man's face immediately lit up with joy, but his tone was reproachful. "You little girl, you still know to come back. Are you addicted to disappearing? Every time you disappear without a word, you don't even know how to greet me." The old man was so angry that his beard trembled. After all, the number of times Yun Luofeng had left a letter behind was not a small number. Chapter 958. Fortunately, his heart had a strong endurance, so he didn't die from anger. "Grandfather, this is my fault. Don't be angry. What if you get angry and ruin your health?" Yun Luofeng smiled as he walked forward. "Besides, I brought you a gift this time." The old man snorted proudly. No gift is more important than giving birth to a fat baby. "Where's Yun Shao? Why did you come back alone?" "Yun Shao has something to do and can't come back for the time being. You will definitely like the gift I brought you this time." Yun Luofeng took out a yellow fruit from his spatial ring. "This is the 100 poison immunity fruit. After you eat it, you will be immune to all poisons." 100 poison immunity fruit. The old man looked at Yun Luofeng suspiciously. "Are you sure this fruit can really make you immune to poisons? Why do I feel that it has an indescribable smell? Tell me the truth, did you pick this fruit up from the toilet?" This fruit was not picked up from the toilet, but taken out by Xiao Mo from the toilet. Of course, Yun Luofeng couldn't tell the old man this. "This is the smell of the 100 poison immunity fruit. If you don't want it, then forget it. I'll give it to someone else." After saying that, Yun Luofeng pretended to take back the 100 poison immunity fruit. The old man was so anxious that he snatched it away. "How can I give such a good thing to others? It must be used to show filial piety to me. Even if you picked it up from the toilet, I'm not afraid." Yun Luofeng retracted his hand with a smile and took out a few more vermilion fruits from his spatial ring. These fruits were undoubtedly emitting an indescribable smell that made people want to vomit. "Father, mother, second uncle, you are all venerable spirit realm now. This 1000 blood fruit can help you advance by 1 level." Originally, the little tree only took out 1000 blood fruit, but later, under her coercion, a few more exploded. This guy had once turned into a human, but for some reason, he turned back into a tree. It was precisely because of this that Yun Luofeng guessed that he must have survived more than this. "You said this 1000 blood fruit can help us break through 1 level. Jun Fengling and Yi Jingchen looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. In comparison, Yun Qingya was much calmer. He had seen his niece's abilities too many times over the years, so he was no longer as shocked as the others. Therefore, he silently took out 1000 blood fruit and swallowed it without even frowning. Boom! Powerful spiritual energy hovered above Yun Qingya's head, creating a strong storm. Breakthrough. Jun Fingling's eyes widened. Did this 1000 blood fruit really allow Yun Qingya to break through? Jun Fengling became even more excited when she recalled how Yun Luofeng had helped her break through. She quickly picked up 1000 blood fruit and ate it without hesitation. When Yi Jingchen saw this, he no longer hesitated. Even if the smell of the 1000 blood fruit was too unpleasant, it was not as enticing as breaking through. What's going on? The simultaneous appearance of the 3 leveling storms finally attracted Yi Tian. When he saw the 3 of them breaking through, he was shocked, speechless. What was going on? Why did the 3 of them break through at the same time? Besides, it seemed like Jun Fengling had just become an intermediate venerable spiritualist not long ago. Logically speaking, she could not have broken through so quickly. After the breakthrough, Yi Jingchen glanced at the dumbfounded Yi Tian and rubbed his nose. Coincidence. It's just a coincidence. Coincidence my ass. Yi Tian almost fell to the ground as he glared at Yi Jingchen. Chapter 959. The three of them broke through at the same time. How could they call it a coincidence? The more he thought about it, the angrier he got. Why aren't you telling me what happened? How did you all break through? This. Yi Jingchen smiled awkwardly. It's really a coincidence. I don't know what's going on either. He didn't want to reveal what Yun Luofeng had yet. Otherwise, it would definitely cause a sensation. However, he was so excited that he forgot to break through separately with Jun Fengling. Forget it. If you don't tell me, I won't force you. Yi Tian knew that he wouldn't be able to get anything out of him. He could only glare at Yi Jingchen resentfully. However, when his eyes swept over Yun Luofeng, he couldn't help but pause. He didn't know if it was an illusion, but he felt that this matter had something to do with Yun Luofeng. Father, Yun Qingya sighed helplessly. Just now, Feng agreed to participate in the league on behalf of Tianyun. What? Jun Fengling heard this and held Yun Luofeng's hand in shock. You're going to participate in the league? Did someone force you to go? Don't worry. With me here, no one can force you. Do you think someone can force me? Yun Luofeng raised his brows and patted the back of Jun Fengling's hand comfortingly. Mother, Yun Shao has gone to an even more powerful world. I can only go and find him if I increase my powers. Perhaps this league tournament will be my opportunity. Jun Fengling sighed. If you want it, then I won't stop you. Remember to be careful. Okay. Yun Luofeng's expression was a little lazy. I'm tired. I'll go back and rest first. If Xiaobai comes back, let her see me in my room. Before she came back, Lin Ruobai had already gone shopping with Yi Qi. Therefore, she didn't see the two of them at the Yi house. Let's go. I'll take you to rest. Jun Fengling held Yun Luofeng's hand and walked towards the backyard. The more she looked at her daughter-in-law, the more she liked her. In her eyes, there was no one in the world who could be compared to her daughter-in-law. Yun Luofeng thought that Lin Ruobai would immediately rush over after hearing that she was back. Who knew that she wouldn't see him standing at the door the next day? Master. Lin Ruobai was so aggrieved that he almost cried. You said you wouldn't leave me behind. Even if you want to go out, bring me along. I promise I won't be a burden to you. Seeing the girl's pitiful expression, Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. Little White, why are you outside? Didn't I tell you to come see me last night? Auntie June said that you were asleep and didn't want me to disturb you. That's why I've been waiting for you so early in the morning. Mother. Yun Luofeng was startled and smiled helplessly. She was indeed too tired yesterday, and Jun Fengling had always doted on her, so she definitely wouldn't let anyone disturb her rest. Xiaobai, I'm going on a long journey again. Furthermore, I've decided to bring you along. Little Mo had mentioned before that Lin Ruobai's bloodline was special. If she were to use it, her strength would increase by leaps and bounds. That was why she decided to keep Lin Ruobai by her side. Lin Ruobai's eyes lit up. Master, I'll go pack my things. I'll go with you later. As soon as she finished speaking, she quickly turned around and skipped towards her room. The excitement in her heart could be seen from her back. Chapter 960. Early morning. The morning light poured down and shone on every corner of the Yi family. At this moment, in the Yi residence's courtyard, Yun Luofeng looked at the people standing in front of her and said faintly, This time, I am going to the Tianhui Empire to participate in the National League. Because there are very few geniuses in the Tianyun Kingdom, I have decided to choose 20 of you to leave with me. She paused and said, Zhong Linger, Qing Yan, Yi Ling, you guys come with me. As for the others, Qing Yan and Yi Ling will choose. Yes, master. Hearing this, Qin Yan and Yi Ling stepped forward and gently checked the list of the members of the army. Finally, they picked out 17 people with strong strength. Miss, the people have been selected. Should we go now? Qin Yan looked at Yun Luofeng and asked. There is no hurry. Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed with an evil light. This time, we are going to the Tianyun Kingdom. The journey is very long. We have to be fully prepared. The two messengers, Yi Jingchen raised his eyebrows and turned to Yun Luofeng. Let them wait. Before this, Yi Jingchen came to tell her that the two messengers were already waiting at the city gate. That was why she was so slow. Hearing this, Yi Jingchen's mouth twitched. What do you mean by fully prepared? It was obvious that she was deliberately delaying time so that the two messengers would wait a little longer. Thinking of this, Yi Jingchen shook his head helplessly. Offending this black-bellied little girl, the two messengers would probably suffer a lot. Time passed slowly. It was not until noon that Yun Luofeng slowly walked to the city gate with a group of people. The procession was grand and majestic, attracting countless onlookers from the sidelines. When they learned that Yun Luofeng brought a group of subordinates to participate in the National League, the people of the Tianyun Kingdom couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. It seemed that this time, the Tianyun Kingdom would be at the bottom again. Even the royal family members couldn't win. How could a group of subordinates win? Therefore, there was no suspense in this National League. At the city gate, the two messengers were sweating profusely. Their patience was almost worn out. If it weren't for the fact that it would be embarrassing to personally go to the Yi residence to pick up Yun Luofeng, Tian Kuei would have already killed him. Just as they were waiting angrily, Yun Luofeng and his people arrived. Sorry, I'm late. The first thing she said when she arrived was an apology, but there was no apology in her voice. My old man is quite clingy, and it's my first time going so far away, so he kept pulling me and not letting me go. That's why I was delayed. Tian Kuei's expression was very ugly. Is your old man clingy? Is this your first time traveling? Who are you trying to fool? He remembered that when he first came to Heavenly Cloud Nation, he heard that Yun Luofeng had gone on a long journey, and he also saw that Yun Luofeng ate and drank well every day. He also didn't see him worrying too much, so how could he be so clingy? However, since Yun Luofeng had already explained it like that, they could not say anything else. They could only sullenly say, it's getting late. Let's go quickly. After saying this, he flung his sleeves and walked out of the city gate. Tian Kuei was afraid that if he spoke a few more words to Yun Luofeng, he would not be able to resist the urge to strangle her to death. This girl was different from Jian Qingguen. At least Jian Qingguen was frank and open, but she seemed to be a shameless person. Under the gaze of many people of the Tianyun Kingdom, Yun Luofeng had already set foot on the road to the Tianyun Kingdom. Her figure gradually disappeared from everyone's eyes until it disappeared. Chapter 961. Tian Hui Empire. The bustling streets were bustling with people and carriages. Countless geniuses from various countries who came to participate in the tournament were welcomed by the citizens of the Tian Hui Empire as they slowly walked into the station. At the same time, the streets were also bustling with noise and excitement. Take a guess. Which country will win first place in the league this time? Of course it will be the Lanyu Empire. The Lanyu Empire has won the tournament 3 times in a row, so there's no need to ask such nonsense. The top 5 are basically the same 5 countries. That's not necessarily true. I heard that a genius suddenly appeared in the Wind Nation some time ago. The genius is extremely talented, and his appearance is cold and unique. Even the princess of the Wuhui Empire has taken a fancy to him and wants to recruit him. I've also heard about that genius. I think his name is Xiao something. Yes, it seems like his name is Xiao Yuqing. TSK, maybe the Wind Nation will be like a dark horse this time and enter the top 5, everyone discussed animatedly, their faces full of anticipation. But at this moment, an untimely voice interrupted. Look, isn't that someone from the Heavenly Cloud Nation? Heavenly Cloud Nation. As the weakest country in the world, it was also a household name. Therefore, as soon as this person finished speaking, everyone turned their heads to look. In the bustling street, a girl in white slowly walked over. This girl was extremely beautiful, and her snow-like white robes fluttered gently in the wind. However, a group of people standing behind the girl were wearing the same clothes, and it was obvious that the girl in white was the leader. Who is this woman? The princess of the Heavenly Cloud Nation. Why have I never heard of such a person? Could it be that the group of people behind her are her maids and guards? Where are the other geniuses from the Heavenly Cloud Nation? Why is there only one? Oh no, 3. In the beginning, everyone ignored Lin Ruobai and Yi Shima who were standing beside Yun Luo Feng. It was not until later that they noticed their existence. Other than Lin Ruobai and Yi Shima, the others were obviously guards. Could it be that the Heavenly Cloud Nation knew that he would fail and didn't want to send too many young people to be humiliated, so they sent these 3 people? At the entrance of the relay station, 2 guards looked coldly at Yun Luo Feng and said expressionlessly, "You're late. There aren't any extra rooms, but I can free up the storeroom for you to squeeze in." The 2 messengers who went to the Heavenly Cloud Nation to pick up Yun Luo Feng smiled when they heard this. This was the order they had sent by pigeon earlier. It was for them to deliberately make things difficult for Yun Luo Feng. Aren't you very arrogant? I won't even give you a room. You can go live in the storeroom. Big brother, little white, let's go. Yun Luo Feng did not even look at the 2 envoys. He turned around and was about to leave. What are you doing? Tian Kuei's expression changed drastically as he shouted. Yun Luo Feng stopped and said, "This Tianhui Empire is just a so-so. There are so many countries participating in the league, but they have not prepared enough rooms. Since your country doesn't even give us a place to stay, then what are we staying here for?" Tian Kuei was dumbfounded. He hadn't expected Yun Luo Feng to act so unconventionally. Logically speaking, if the organizer didn't prepare any rooms, shouldn't she compromise? Among the countries that came to participate in the league, who dared to be as arrogant as she was? Chapter 962. Seeing that Yun Luo Feng was about to leave, Tian Kuei finally became anxious, but his dignity prevented him from bowing his head, so his voice inevitably became a bit tough. Yun Luo Feng, if you leave, I will betray your Heavenly Cloud Nation and become the bottom of the list, so you have to think carefully. Once you become the last 3 in the competition, your Heavenly Cloud Nation will be destroyed. Yun Luo Feng's back was facing the envoy, her figure indescribably confident and decisive. What does the destruction of Heavenly Cloud Nation have to do with me? I won't swallow my anger here for Heavenly Cloud Nation. After saying this, she looked back at Tian Kuei, her lips curved into an evil smile. Moreover, this time it's not me who wants to leave, it's your Tianhui Empire's lack of arrangements. When you have arranged everything, I will naturally come back to participate in the competition. Tian Kuei's face suddenly changed, and just as he was about to speak, he was interrupted by Fang Yu, who had been gloomy all this time. This Fang Yu, impressively, was another envoy. I will arrange rooms for you later. Tian Kuei's face was very ugly. Fang Yu, what are you doing? If you want to deal with her, there will be opportunities in the future. Fang Yu lowered his eyebrows and said in a low voice, but now that all the countries are here, if this matter is spread, it will definitely have a negative impact on the Tianhui Empire. We can't let the empire suffer just to make things difficult for her. Tian Kuei took a deep breath, suppressed the anger in his heart, and looked coldly at Yun Luofeng. Someone will immediately prepare rooms for you. Now go to the utility room to rest, wait for the rooms to be cleaned up before moving in. Yun Luofeng did not say anything, turned around and left. Seeing that she was leaving, the rest of the people also followed behind her. Yun Luofeng, I've already found someone to prepare a room for you. What are you doing? Tian Kuei's anger soared to the heavens as he shouted angrily. His eyes were burning with fury. Yun Luofeng stopped, still with her back to Tian Kuei. Her voice was lazy and evil, but it made people feel like there were needles on their backs. I did not come here to be wronged. Since there are no rooms for us to rest, why should we stay? Tian Kuei's chest was filled with anger. I have already said that I will send someone to clean up for you. Now you only need to go to the utility room for a while. Why don't you let Lanxiang Guo rest in the storeroom? Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips. His eyes were filled with evil. If she really went to the storeroom, it would be tantamount to admitting defeat in front of the Tianhui Empire. Therefore, even if it was only for a moment, she would not agree. Lanxiang Nation arrived earlier than you. Who asked you to be late? Tian Kuei snorted, his face expressionless. Since that's the case, there's nothing I can do. Big brother, Xiaobai, let's return to our country. Yun Luofeng shrugged his shoulders with a helpless look. Tian Kuei nearly vomited blood. He gritted his teeth and said, What exactly do you want? My request is very simple. Yun Luofeng turned her head, a smile on her face. Let Lanxiang country give up their room. Dream on. Tian Kuei's gaze was sharp. Yun Luofeng, you'd better be obedient. Otherwise, no one will know what will happen in the competition. He deliberately lowered his voice, using a volume that only the two of them could hear. What? Unexpectedly, when the smiling girl heard Tian Kuei's words, she immediately displayed a look of astonishment and even a look of gratitude appeared on her face. Chapter 963. I didn't expect the Tianhui Empire to be so righteous. Just now, I was a villain. What's going on? Tian Kuei was dumbfounded. He looked at Yun Luofeng, his eyes full of astonishment. Envoy Tian Kuei, it was my fault just now. I was too calculative. I can't be compared with the righteous Tianhui Empire. Tian Kuei still didn't understand what Yun Luofeng meant. However, this didn't mean that he wouldn't climb up the pole. He said with approval, You're right. Our Tianhui Empire has always been righteous. It's good that you can recognize your mistake. Oh, in that case, I'll have to trouble Envoy Tian Kuei to vacate the room in Lanxiang. Yun Luofeng smiled and looked at Tian Kuei. Tian Kuei's expression completely changed as he said sternly, What do you mean by that? Tian Kuei Envoy, I was too calculative before and even threatened you to give up the competition. But in order to keep our Tianyun Nation's team, you did not hesitate to sacrifice your own people, Lanxiang Nation. This selfless spirit is really worth learning from. I misunderstood you in the beginning. Tian Kuei's eyes widened in shock. When did he say that he would vacate the room in Lanxiang? At this time, when the people around heard Yun Luofeng's words, they all showed appreciation. After all, Tian Kuei did say something to Yun Luofeng in a low voice. Because the voice was too low, they didn't hear the content. Yun Luofeng, you're ruthless. Tian Kuei finally reacted. He was tricked by this stinky girl. Now the arrow was on the bowstring. He had no other way. Unless he publicly denied Yun Luofeng's words. In this way, everyone would inevitably think that the Tianhui Empire didn't keep their words, and the empire's reputation would plummet. Fang Yu, let's go and discuss with the people of Lanxiang. Tian Kuei fiercely flung his sleeves, turned around and walked into the station. The result was clear. The people of Lanxiang had already lost face because of Yun Luofeng. How could they allow him to give up the room at this time? No matter what Tian Kuei said, he still sat still. In the end, Tian Kuei had no choice but to bring out the princess of Lanxiang who was married to His Majesty. He also gave some compensation. Only then did the people of Lanxiang agree to give up the room. Because of this, Tian Kuei hated Yun Luofeng bitterly. Similarly, Lanxiang country was forced to give up their room. In the eyes of ordinary citizens, they would say that Lanxiang country was acting righteously. However, those countries that came to participate in the league tournament were all shrewd people. They didn't know how to laugh at them in their hearts. So, it wasn't only Tian Chief who wished to kill Yun Luofeng, there were also those proud and arrogant geniuses from Azure Flight Nation. Sister-in-law, you didn't see the complexion of those people from Lanxiang Nation just now. Their complexion was almost the color of a pig's liver. Ha ha ha, I, your big brother, have never felt so happy in so many years. In the room, Yi Shima put his arm on Yun Luofeng's shoulder and laughed. His voice was filled with joy and exuberance. Yun Luofeng took a sip of tea and narrowed his eyes. I've said it before, I'm not one to suffer losses. If anyone makes me suffer a loss, I'll pay it back 1,000 times over. If Tian Kuei didn't think of making things difficult for her, he wouldn't have implicated Lanxiang country and caused him to be hated by the people of Lanxiang country. Therefore, he reaped what he sowed. Chapter 964. Sister-in-law. Yi Shima raised his brows and looked at the young lady sitting in front of him. Tomorrow is the registration day. Have you thought about what competition you're going to register for? There were 3 types of competitions in each country. The first was medical skills, the second was combat skills, and the third was beast taming. The first 2 were the most popular. Not many people went for the last one, which was beast taming. The spiritual beasts in the Wuhui mainland were extremely arrogant and would not submit to a human easily. Taming them was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. Therefore, there were very few people on the mainland who owned spiritual beasts. If one could not tame the arrogant spiritual beasts, it would be impossible to form a contract with them, let alone order them to fight. Yun Luofeng's fingertips caressed the edge of her teacup. Her lips curled into a lazy and devilish smile. I'm interested in all 3 competitions. This meant that she was going to register for all 3 competitions. Yi Shima was startled. He said hesitantly, although there's no rule that prohibits people from registering more than once, no one has ever registered for 2 or more competitions at the same time. Are you sure you'll be able to attend to all 3 competitions? Yun Luofeng was very confident in Yun Luofeng's medical skills and fighting skills, but the last skill, beast taming, was not so simple. I either don't do it or I have to do it to the best of my abilities. Yun Luofeng slowly stood up. Her black eyes were like the stars in the night sky, emitting a dazzling radiance. She had never been someone who was willing to be ordinary. If she wanted to do something, she had to amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Yi Shima smiled helplessly. Sister-in-law, you've already made up your mind. As your elder brother, I'll definitely support you. However, beast taming is very dangerous. You should be careful. Yun Luofeng's lips curved slightly, and his voice sounded lazily, I'm tired. Yi Shima smiled bitterly and shook his head. I won't disturb you then. Have a good rest. I'll look for you tomorrow. After saying this, he looked at Yun Luofeng with a complicated look in his eyes. He then turned and walked towards the door. No matter when, his sister-in-law would always bring him great fright. Even the top geniuses from the 3 empires had never considered registering for 3 competitions at the same time. The next day, dawn. Early in the morning, the army members were already stretching their legs in the courtyard. Lin Ruobai and Yi Shima were waiting for Yun Luofeng at the door. Not long after, the tightly shut door gradually opened. When they saw the white-clothed girl at the door, everyone went to greet her. "They're all here." The young girl stretched her back, raised her eyebrows, and looked at the people in the courtyard. She raised her lips and said, "In that case, we will go to the relay station to register. The rest of you have chosen to fight. Zhonglinger, you will register for 2 competitions. One is fighting, and the other is medical skills." In these past few years, Yun Luofeng had also taught Zhonglinger some medical skills. In addition to her self-study, even though her current medical skills couldn't compare to the Grandmaster, she still had hope of winning among these youths. "Yes." Zhonglinger respectfully replied. "Let's go." Then, Yun Luofeng took the lead and walked out of the courtyard. The others hurriedly chased after him. Everyone was speechless. Coincidentally, just as Yun Luofeng was about to step out of the courtyard, a group of people wearing the national emblem of Lanxiang majestically walked over. Chapter 965. The leading young man noticed Yun Luofeng too. A fierce look flashed across his eyes as he lifted his leg in front of Yun Luofeng in an attempt to trip her. Yun Luofeng acted as if she didn't see anything. She lifted her leg and stepped on the young man's bare ankle. "Ah!" A pig-slaughtering howl echoed through the entire relay station, causing the geniuses who were rushing to the registration area to look over. The young man held his swollen ankle and glared at Yun Luofeng angrily. He gritted his teeth. "Yun Luofeng, can't you watch where you're going? Can't you see my leg?" Yun Luofeng glanced at the young man evilly. "Sorry, I didn't see you extend your leg in front of me." Upon hearing this, everyone understood what had happened. It turned out that someone from Lanxiang wanted to trip Yun Luofeng. Who knew that he would go for wool and come home shorn? Yun Luofeng actually stepped on his ankle. "Yun Luofeng, let's wait and see." The young man's eyes burned with anger. He glanced at Yun Luofeng coldly, then waved his hand and gritted his teeth. "Let's go." This time, he wasn't as majestic as before. Instead, he limped away with the geniuses from Lanxiang. Yi Shima stared coldly in the direction that the young man left and said, "He's Lanxiang's 5th prince, Qiu Feihua. He's also Lanxiang's #1 genius. He's an advanced celestial spiritualist." Yun Luofeng shrugged. "Let's keep going." To be honest, even before she broke through, she didn't think much of the geniuses from Lanxiang. Moreover, she was now an intermediate venerable spiritualist. Yi Shima saw that Yun Luofeng was about to leave, so he quickly chased after her and followed her closely. At the entrance of the relay station, apart from the usually deserted beast-taming station, the other 2 were crowded with people. It was evident that medical skills were extremely popular on this mainland and had become an indispensable part of life. "Sister-in-law, it looks like we'll have to queue for a long time this time." Yi Shima crossed his arms in front of his chest and raised his sharp eyebrows. His eyes were full of smiles. "Let's go to the beast-taming station first." Yun Luofeng glanced at the crowd, then turned around and headed in another direction. Perhaps because the name of the Heavenly Cloud Nation was too eye-catching, everyone was watching Yun Luofeng's every move. Now that they saw her walking towards the beast-taming registration area, the faces of those people were filled with shock, but most of them were filled with disdain. This girl from Heavenly Cloud Nation is a beast tamer. No wonder the Heavenly Cloud Nation is so confident this time. It turns out that they want to find a sense of presence in this unpopular event. It's a pity that although beast taming is unpopular, there are many geniuses among them. Even the top 3 countries have sent their people to participate. Even though beast taming was unpopular, it didn't mean that no one had the ability to do so. Therefore, if the Tianyun nation wanted to gain a sense of existence from this unpopular field, it would be a big mistake. The Heavenly Cloud Nation, which had been at the bottom for 10,000 years, would never be able to rise again. At the beast taming registration point, an old man was holding a brush and writing down the names of those people. Compared to the other two registration points, this place was far too deserted. It was to the extent that the old man wrote very slowly and leisurely. Next. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Yun Luo Feng. Chapter 966. When the old man heard the words Heavenly Cloud Nation, he was obviously taken aback. However, he didn't hesitate to memorize Yun Luofeng's name. Then, a kind smile appeared on his old face and he said, "Okay, you can go now." There were no other registrants behind Yun Luofeng. Hence, when the last stroke was done, the old man had already put away the paper. TSK, Yun Luofeng really signed up for the beast taming competition. I'm actually quite envious of her. She signed up so quickly. Do you think she didn't want to queue up and just signed up for a random competition? Hey, look, Yun Luofeng is heading towards the battle competition. As soon as that person exclaimed, the others saw that Yun Luofeng had already walked to another registration point and was quietly waiting at the back of the queue. Everyone's heads were buzzing as they stared at the young girl in white in astonishment. Their eyes were filled with shock. She wants to sign up for 2 competitions at once. That's impossible. Although the time for each competition is separated, everyone will definitely be exhausted after one competition. They won't be able to face the next competition in their best condition. That's why no one would sign up for 2 competitions at the same time. That's right. The other people from the Heavenly Cloud Nation haven't signed up yet. Yun Luofeng must be signing up with them. The more they thought about it, the more they felt that it made sense. Signing up for 2 competitions at once? How is that possible? Even the geniuses from the top 3 countries wouldn't dare to take such a risk. After all, failure in one competition would have a huge impact on their ranking. The sun was high up in the sky. The number of people at the registration point gradually decreased, but they didn't leave. Instead, they looked at the team from the Heavenly Cloud Nation with a sneer. Every genius who signed up had to report their strength. That was why they were watching from the sidelines. Next. Compared to the kind old man at the registration point, this person's face was a little more arrogant. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Yun Luofeng, strength. Yun Luofeng paused, and a light flashed in his eyes. Advanced Heavenly Spirit Warrior. The people who were sneering suddenly heard the young girl's indifferent voice. It was like thunder, and they were all dumbfounded. She signed up. Moreover, she's an advanced heavenly spiritualist. At this moment, everyone's faces were extremely interesting, as if they were being dyed with dye. Following that, a series of loud voices rang out and echoed throughout the entire street. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Yishima, Advanced Heavenly Spiritualist. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Yilang, Intermediate Heavenly Spirit Warrior. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Qing Yan, Low-Level Heavenly Spirit Warrior. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Zhonglinger, Low-Level Heavenly Spirit Warrior. Sky Fortune Kingdom, Dog Egg, Earth Spirit, Celestial Spirit Warrior. Another Heavenly Spirit Practitioner. Since when did so many young celestial spirit cultivators appear in the Heavenly Cloud Nation? They knew that Yi Shima was the only celestial spirit master in the Heavenly Cloud Nation except for Princess Jiang Mengyao. However, the rest of the people in Heavenly Cloud Nation were too weak. Even if the 2 of them were stronger, they couldn't lead so many useless people. But now, all of them were heavenly spiritualists. The genius from the Lanxiang Nation, Qiu Feihua, who wanted to deal with Yun Luo Feng, had an ugly expression on his face after he heard the strength of the genius from the Heavenly Cloud Nation. He coldly glanced at Yun Luo Feng and snorted. Chapter 967. If you only signed up for battle, maybe Heavenly Cloud Nation would be the last one. Unfortunately, you are too stupid. You actually signed up for beast taming. Don't you know that if you choose more than one subject, the ranking will be based on the worst one? This was why many geniuses didn't dare to sign up for 2 subjects. If they didn't have enough energy and didn't perform well, wouldn't they be harming their own nation? After a while, the other people from Heavenly Cloud Nation also signed up. Yun Luo Feng asked the others to wait for her and led Zhong Linger to the medical registration point. Seeing her actions, the crowd, which had quietened down, once again had a strong reaction. My God, is this woman going to sign up for the last one after signing up for 2 subjects? 3 subjects in a row. Does she think she is a god? And she wants to participate in 3 subjects at once? If she really signed up, then she is an idiot. She has no brain and only knows how to show off. Yun Luo Feng didn't disappoint the person who cursed her. She was already standing at the medical registration point. Her lazy voice was like a heavy hammer, mercilessly pounding on everyone's heart. Heavenly Cloud Nation, Yun Luo Feng. Boom! Everyone's minds rumbled, and their vision went blank. They stared at Yun Luo Feng in a daze, speechless. Since ancient times, there has never been a person who signed up for 2 subjects. But she suddenly signed up for 3 subjects. Oh my God, how stupid is this girl to do such a thing? Idiot! Qiu Feihua looked at Yun Luo Feng mockingly. You will regret your stupidity sooner or later. I don't know if I will regret it or not, but I know that your Lanxiang nation will regret it. Yun Luofeng's lips curled up, and her evil eyes swept across Qiu Feihua's pale face. Her words were arrogant and arrogant. Qiu Feihua snorted coldly, let's wait and see. As he finished speaking, he walked away from Yun Luofeng's side. He had originally wanted to walk in front of her and plot against her again, but then he thought of the girl's sinister methods, and could only forcibly suppress the anger in his heart. Then, Zhong Linger also signed up and quietly walked to Yun Luofeng's side. Let's go back and rest. Yun Luofeng shrugged her shoulders and walked into the station. At this moment, she did not see that behind the crowd, a pair of clear and cold eyes were staring at her. Even after she left, that pair of eyes were still unable to look away. Xiao Yuqing, dressed in a navy blue robe, stood at the back of the crowd. There was a complicated look on his handsome, cold face and a hint of sadness in his eyes. His mother's death should have made him hate this woman who killed his mother, but why, when he saw her again, he couldn't hate her at all. Master, why didn't you announce your true strength just now? Yun Luofeng slowly walked into the courtyard of the relay station, and Fire's puzzled voice came out from her soul. This time, before she could answer, Little Mo answered on her behalf. Idiot, I really don't know how you haven't been swindled away after living on the continent for so many years. Master is master and spirit is. Besides, an advanced heavenly spiritualist can't be underestimated, so there's no need for her to reveal her true power. Xiao Mo snorted, obviously disdainful of Fire's stupidity. Chapter 968. Xiao Mo, how is the small tree? Since that day, Yun Luofeng had not entered the divine grimoire space. Instead, she had become a hands-off shopkeeper and left the small tree to Xiao Mo. Xiao Mo was silent for a moment. The medicinal herbs in the divine grimoire space have almost been eaten by him. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng felt a headache coming on. It seemed that she needed to purchase medicinal herbs as soon as possible. I heard that the prize for this medical competition is a precious medicinal herb, Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed, so I must get this medicinal herb to feed the small tree. Ha ha ha. The small tree seemed to have heard Yun Luofeng's words and let out a crisp laughter. Its laughter was very joyful and passed through the soul to Yun Luofeng's mind. Yun Luofeng smiled slightly and did not say anything more. She walked into her room. The first round of the competition was a medical competition. The venue was set in the palace of the Tianhui Empire. At this moment, the venue was crowded with people discussing. In addition to the empty space for the contestants, there was also a stand for people to watch. Yun Luofeng walked to Zhong Linger's side and patted her shoulder. You don't have to be too stressed. It doesn't matter if you lose, I am here. Zhong Linger nodded her head. Her spirited eyes were filled with determination. Since she was participating in the competition, she must do her best and not let her master down. His Majesty, Imperial Concubine Ling has arrived. A sharp voice cut through the entire venue. After a moment, a bright yellow figure walked quickly, surrounded by many eunuchs and palace maids. Beside this man in a dragon robe, there was a smiling woman in palace attire. The woman was not only beautiful, but her temperament was even more gentle and moving. It was no wonder that the emperor of the Tianhui Empire was so obsessed with her. Everyone, today, I will personally be the referee of this medical competition. Long Yuan raised his eyebrows and looked down at the many young geniuses below. The first round of the medical competition is an elimination round. Later, I will ask someone to bring the medicinal herbs, and then 2 geniuses will come forward and write down the names and effects of the medicinal herbs. Seeing those people's astonished expressions, Long Yuan's voice paused for a moment before he said, "We know that based on your talents, it's not difficult to write down the medicinal herbs' effects. Therefore, only those who hand in their papers first have the qualifications to advance. Moreover, the corresponding medicinal herbs for each group are different, so you're unable to cheat." In other words, every time a new group was changed, another set of medicinal ingredients would be taken out. This also made it so that before the competition, everyone would not know what medicinal ingredients they would be facing. In this way, they were prepared to guard against cheating. After saying his piece, Long Yuan waved his hand and said in a heroic manner, "Furthermore, we have also changed the competition prizes at the last minute. As the winner, all the medicinal ingredients will belong to him." Yun Luofeng narrowed her eyes. What she lacked now was medicinal herbs. Therefore, she took the first place. Without further ado, let the competition begin. As soon as Long Yuan's words fell, a eunuch immediately brought in the medicinal ingredients and took out 2 pieces of paper, reporting the names on the paper. Zhang Ming, Zhao Wu. In an instant, the 2 people whose names had been reported walked out. They raced towards the medicinal herbs and quickly wrote on the paper, "Your Majesty." Imperial Concubine Ling looked at Yun Luofeng and her eyes darkened. She whispered in Long Yuan's ear, "That little girl is Yun Luofeng." Chapter 969. Oh. Long Yuan raised his eyebrows. She's the one who doesn't put the people of Lanxiang in her eyes? Logically speaking, with Long Yuan's status, he didn't need to care about Lanxiang. However, the princess of the Lanxiang country was his most beloved woman. Naturally, he had to help her a little. "My beloved concubine," Long Yuan pinched Imperial Concubine Ling's smooth face and asked with a smile, "How do you want me to help you vent your anger?" Imperial Concubine Ling blushed, "Your Majesty, you didn't say before that we could fight during the competition, so I've already done something in the drawing of lots. She's dealing with the people of Lanxiang and I've also instructed her to interfere with Yun Luofeng's competition." "Ha!" Long Yuan laughed and his arms tightly hugged Imperial Concubine Ling's waist. "My beloved concubine, whatever you like, I will do as you wish." Long Yuan truly loved Imperial Concubine Ling. Ever since he had Imperial Concubine Ling, he had never slept with any other concubines and naturally indulged her in all her actions. "Thank you, Your Majesty." Imperial Concubine Ling's heart was filled with joy and the corners of her lips raised in a smile. She looked at Yun Luofeng with a sinister look in her eyes and the smile on her lips deepened. "Yun Luofeng, that day, you made the people of Lanxiang lose face. Today, I'll make you pay back 1,000 times." In the crowd, Yun Luofeng sensed a vicious gaze. He slowly raised his head and met Imperial Concubine Ling's eyes that were filled with anger. In addition to anger, there was also a complacent smile in those eyes. There was no trace of the previous gentleness and intelligence. At this moment, the eunuch's voice pulled Yun Luofeng back from his thoughts. "Next, Tianqi, Zhonglinger." Zhonglinger was slightly startled. She took a deep breath and slowly walked onto the competition stage. On the stage, a eunuch had already taken out another round of medicinal ingredients and placed them on the table one by one. "Hey, isn't that Yun Luofeng's maid?" "I know Tianqi. He's from Fengyue country and is the disciple of a powerful doctor from Fengyue country. Zhonglinger is only a maid, she definitely doesn't have any skills." "That's right. If her medical skills were really great, how could she be willing to follow Yun Luofeng as a maid? This shows that Tianqi will definitely win." No one was optimistic about Zhonglinger. In their opinion, if Zhonglinger was skilled, she would not be a maid. Perhaps she didn't even know what those medicinal ingredients were. Zhonglinger acted as if she didn't hear those mocking voices. She picked up the brush and quickly wrote on the white paper in front of her. Seeing her behavior, the crowd was stunned again. "She's really writing those medicinal ingredients?" "No. I think she's just trying to save face, so she's just randomly scribbling. Later, Tianqi will hand in his paper first, so she'll lose even if she doesn't have to. No one will know that she's scribbling. N-I-S-S-S-I-S-S-S-S-S-S-S-S Shan, T-S." In comparison, cold sweat broke out on Tianqi's forehead. Every time he wrote down a medicinal herb, he would ponder for a long time before he could write down another one, Tian S. That Zhonglinger's pen didn't even stop moving. In other words, she didn't even think about it. This is completely abnormal. She isn't one of those famous divine doctors. How could she write down the effects of a medicinal herb without thinking? Seeing this, the mockery on everyone's faces became even more obvious. They had already determined that Zhonglinger was making things up. Chapter 970. Time passed. Under the ridiculing eyes of those people, Zhonglinger stopped writing and calmly walked towards the middle-aged man on the high platform. The entire venue became quiet. Long Yuan frowned and ordered the eunuch to take the paper handed over by Zhonglinger. The eunuch accepted the order and walked forward. He carefully picked up the brush and the ink had yet to dry, and walked to the front of the old men. In the venue, in addition to the emperor's concubine who dominated the whole competition, there was also an assessment team formed by the imperial doctors. These imperial doctors were all famous, so it was best to use them as the assessment team. One of the old men took the paper and glanced at it slightly. After this glance, his eyes showed shock. "Look at this." The old man's expression was very surprised. Hearing this, the other old men also came over, and when they saw the content of the paper, their faces showed the same expression. What's going on? Could it be that Zhonglinger made up the story and angered the imperial doctors? The people below whispered to each other and discussed. Zhonglinger's identity was there. She was just a maid who replaced the genius of Heavenly Cloud Nation to be humiliated. How could she have any real ability? If she really had the ability to make these imperial doctors submit, then she would no longer be a maid. But what happened next was like a slap to the faces of those who thought that they were wise. Perfect. This answer is too perfect. Not a single word wrong, written in detail. The imperial doctors nodded in appreciation. Even if there were many geniuses here, to write in such detail in a short period of time, they were afraid that few people could do it. It was no wonder that they were so shocked before. Tianqi dropped the pen in his hand in frustration, looked at Zhong Linger with a complicated look, and asked, "You should be more than a maid, right? As a maid, how could she have such strength?" Zhong Linger raised her chin. "My identity is indeed a maid, there is no doubt about it." "Miss, on the stage," the old man smiled slightly. "Can this old man know who your master is?" When she heard this, Zhong Linger's face showed a touch of pride, and her voice was proud. "My master is my master, Yun Luo Feng." She was proud. Because she had a master like Yun Luo Feng, ever since she decided to pledge her loyalty to her, she was destined to embark on an extraordinary path. At this moment, Zhong Linger was filled with gratitude towards the crown prince of Long Yuan country, Gao Ling. If not for the royal family's precautions against the general's mansion, she, who was born useless, would not have been chosen to join the team. The crowd was in an uproar. It was no wonder that the person who was praised by the imperial physician was a maidservant. If Yun Luo Feng really had great medical skills, then they would be willing to be her attendants. Of course, the prerequisite was that she had the ability to do so. Geniuses were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. So what if this maid was praised? Her memory of medicinal herbs did not represent her strength. With so many geniuses gathered here today, she did not have much of a chance of winning. Zhong Linger raised her head and puffed out her chest. Under the astonished, doubtful, and disdainful gazes of those people, she was like a proud peacock as she stepped out of the arena and walked to Yun Luofeng's side. "Master, I won't let you down." Even if she gave it her all, she would still win. "Thank you for your hard work." Yun Luofeng smiled and looked at the arena. After Zhong Linger left the stage, the rest of the contestants also walked onto the stage after the eunuch announced their names. Chapter 971. Your Majesty, a snow-white hand rested on the emperor's wrist. Imperial concubine Ling smiled softly, her beautiful eyes faintly fluctuating. "This little girl seems quite interesting." "Oh." Long Yuan raised his eyebrows, looked at Imperial concubine Ling's beautiful face, and gently pinched the back of her hand. "Is there a shortage of maids in the palace?" "Do you like this little girl?" called Zhong Linger. Imperial concubine Ling shyly bowed her head. "Your Majesty, you know me well. I really want Zhong Linger to be my maid. Since you want her, after the competition, I will help you get her from Tianyun Nation." Long Yuan's eyes were very domineering, and his tone was arrogant. "Even if you want Yun Luo Feng to be your maid, Tianyun Nation will obediently offer her to you, let alone a maid." This was the boldness of a strong nation in front of a weak one. "So what if I want your maid?" "That's your blessing. If you refuse, then you don't know how to appreciate my kindness." Of course, Long Yuan believed that Tianyun Nation would not have the courage to refuse. Moreover, it was worth it to exchange a little girl for a friendly attitude from Tianyun Nation. "Your Majesty, you must not." Imperial concubine Ling shook her head. "This Yun Luo Feng is the daughter-in-law of the Yi family. The Yi family is very important in Tianyun Nation. Tianyun Nation will not let her go. Moreover, every nation has a rule that no nation is allowed to fight without permission. I don't want to drag your Majesty down for my own selfish reasons." Long Yuan looked at her affectionately. "My dear, you seem to have forgotten one thing. If Tianyun Nation is still at the bottom this time, it will be removed from the mainland. At that time, why should we care about the rules of every nation? Imperial concubine Ling's eyes flashed a few times. She had been waiting for this sentence. As long as His Majesty said this, it meant that Tianyun Nation would definitely lose this competition. Thinking of this, Imperial concubine Ling's lips curved slightly, and her sinister eyes swept towards Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, Lu Qinyi. A sharp voice rang out, and in an instant, everyone's gazes fell on Yun Luofeng's body. Lu Qinyi was the son of the imperial tutor of Lanxiang Nation. His medical skills were outstanding, and he had an elegant demeanor. All the women in Lanxiang Nation had their hearts set on him. Compared to the arrogant and despotic Prince Qiu Feihua, he was clearly in the limelight. As soon as he appeared, he caused a wave of screams. It's Azurefly Country's young Master Lu. Heavens, he really is as elegant as the rumors say and extraordinarily handsome. If I can become his wife, I can die without regrets. Lu Qinyi's lips curled into a faint smile when he heard the screams of the women. He fanned himself with a feather fan in his hand, looking elegant and handsome. It was as if his entire body was emitting light. When the emperor saw that Yun Luofeng's opponent was Lu Qinyi, he understood what was going on. He frowned and said, "My beloved concubine, you said that you wanted the people from Lanxiang Nation to interfere with Yun Luofeng. Could it be that you want Lu Qinyi to use his honey trap?" Imperial concubine Ling smiled mysteriously. "Your Majesty, I am confident that I can defeat Yun Luofeng in the first round of the competition." Imperial concubine Ling had a lot of confidence in the people from Lanxiang Nation. Moreover, Lu Qinyi was very strong. Even if he didn't use those dirty tricks, he could still make Yun Luofeng cry. Under the gazes of the women, Lu Qinyi fanned himself and walked to Yun Luofeng's side. His eyes were smiling, and his movements were elegant. Every move he made was very attractive. Chapter 972. However, Yun Luofeng's black pupils were completely calm. There were no ripples in them at all, and no one was able to see the emotion in her eyes. Lu Qinyi's eyes narrowed. He felt that this woman wasn't the kind of person who would be easy to hook up with. Even though he was very confident in his own methods. "Miss Yun." Lu Qinyi's lips curved into a warm smile. "I've heard so much about you. I've been interested in you for a long time. It's my honor to be your opponent." Seeing how Lu Qinyi treated Yun Luofeng so gently, the women below went crazy with jealousy. Doesn't Yun Luofeng already have a husband? And she's shamelessly trying to hook up with Sir Lu. Her husband is just a descendant of a small nation. How can he compare to Sir Lu? After all, Sir Lu's Lanxiang Nation is one of the top 10 nations in the nation. Plus, he's the son of the Grand Tutor. His status is extremely high. I thought Yun Luofeng was different. I didn't expect her to be so worldly. When she sees a man with a higher status, she wants to kneel and lick his boots. Lin Ruobai and the others almost went crazy when they heard the discussions. These women who fell in love were really crazy. They actually turned the truth upside down and couldn't tell right from wrong. When did Yun Luofeng seduce Lu Qinyi? When did she kneel and lick his boots? It was obviously Lu Qinyi who shamelessly tried to hook up with Yun Luofeng. Lin Ruobai was just about to roar in anger when he saw Yun Luofeng's sharp gaze shoot towards the women who mocked him. "This Lu Qinyi is very outstanding." Her voice was a little careless and lazy. "If you think he's outstanding, come and take him away immediately. It's just that there's so many of you, it doesn't seem like there's enough of him. However, I have a way. You can cut him into 1,000 pieces and each of you can get a piece. As for me..." Yun Luofeng paused for a moment, then faintly raised the corner of his lips. "I already have the most beloved and most outstanding man in the entire genius world. With that kind of comparison, I have no interest in an ordinary person like him." It was fine to talk about her, but definitely not Yun Shao. She wouldn't allow anyone to humiliate him. Lu Chenyi's expression was a little stiff. Anger rose in his heart. This woman actually said he was an ordinary person? She even wanted to cut him into 1,000 pieces and give them to these women who admired him. On the grandstand, a cold man was hidden in the crowd. His eyes were locked on the peerless girl in white. However, after hearing the young girl's words, he felt as if his heart had been punched by someone. Young Master Shao, the person behind him, saw Xiao Yuqing's pale face and asked worriedly. "Let's go. There's nothing interesting about this match. Because the winner would always be her." Xiao Yuqing took one last look at Yun Luofeng, then turned around and walked out of the venue. Back then, that startling glimpse of her was destined to degenerate him for the rest of his life. But he gladly endured it and did not regret it. The beautiful woman who had called him Xiao Yuqing sensed his last glance and subconsciously looked at Yun Luofeng, who was in the middle of the venue. There was a complicated look in her eyes. All these years, young Master Xiao seemed to have been thinking about a woman. If she guessed correctly, that woman was Yun Luofeng. Unfortunately, this Yun Luofeng already had a husband. Young Master Xiao was destined to be unable to obtain her. If that was the case, would he still have a chance? Chapter 973. The pretty woman's lips curled into a dignified smile. There was no lack of joy in her eyes. In the arena, Lu Chenyi had already put away his elegant smile. His gentle eyes now held a cunning look. "Miss Yun, you're so infatuated with your husband. However, you've misunderstood my intentions. I don't have any improper thoughts towards you." Lu Chenyi slowly walked towards Yun Luofeng and placed his thin lips next to her ear. Using a voice that only the two of them could hear, he said, "Of course, if you're willing to be my woman, I'll let you have a go in the competition later. How about it?" Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes, and the smile on his lips contained a trace of evil. "Give way to me. I'm just afraid that you don't have the right to." Hee, Lu Chenyi chuckled, "So Miss Yun believes that you'll definitely win the competition. I'm looking forward to seeing you defeat me." When he said this, he deliberately raised his voice so that everyone around him could hear his voice. "What? Yun Luofeng is so arrogant. She thinks that she can defeat Sir Lu. Don't think that she has the right to be arrogant just because she trained a maidservant like Zhongling. If Zhongling were to compete with Sir Lu, she would definitely lose. She really doesn't know her place. How could those women who adored Lu Chenyi watch as their dream lover was bullied by others? One by one, they stepped forward. Anyone who did not know the truth would think that Yun Luofeng had killed her entire family. Lu Chenyi's smile grew even wider when he got the result he wanted. He looked at Yun Luofeng proudly and said gently, "Miss Yun, let's begin. I hope that you can defeat me." A eunuch had already placed the medicinal ingredients on the table. Lu Chenyi raised the corners of his lips as he looked at the medicinal ingredients in front of him. "Also, I would like to increase the difficulty of this competition. I wonder if your Imperial Majesty will allow it. There's no harm in saying it." Long Yuan raised his chin and spoke with a smile. Lu Chenyi's eyes flickered. "I suggest that Miss Yun and I not only write down the effects of the medicinal ingredients, but also combine them into a prescription. There must be at least 3 types of prescription." It was already extremely difficult to write down the effects of the medicinal herbs, and it was even more difficult to use these medicinal herbs to form a prescription. A look of admiration flashed across Long Yuan's eyes as he nodded. "I agree. Thank you, Your Majesty." Lu Chenyi cupped his fists and smiled at Yun Luofeng. "Miss Yun, you were so confident just now. Do you dare to accept my suggestion?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows. "Why wouldn't I dare? In this world, there is nothing that I, Yun Luofeng, dare not do. Ah, Luchini laughed. Miss Yun is indeed not an ordinary woman. I really admire you. I hope you still have the courage to say such words later. Luchini flicked his sleeves and walked to his seat. This Luchini's talent was indeed not bad, but that was only in the Lanxiang nation. He couldn't be compared to the other top-ranked nations. Even the geniuses of other countries would not dare to raise such a condition, so why did he have such boldness? The reason was very simple. It was because the imperial concubine of the Tianhui Empire was the princess of their Lanxiang country. Moreover, it was also the imperial concubine who requested him to make things difficult for Yun Luofeng. Chapter 974. Therefore, before this, he already knew which herbs the Heavenly Hui Empire was going to bring over. He also made preparations in advance. He even flipped through the books and found 3 prescriptions. He had to admit that it was nice to have someone behind him. He could even cheat so easily. Luchini unrolled the paper and with a flourish of his brush, he wrote down a line of words on the white paper. In order not to show that he was prepared, he pretended to think for a while every time he wrote a paragraph. At the same time, Yun Luofeng also began to write seriously. Time passed slowly. Half an incense stick of time passed quickly. At this moment, no one made a sound. They just quietly watched the 2 people on the field. Unsurprisingly, those who mocked Yun Luofeng before remained silent, silently admiring the calm posture of the young girl when she wrote. Compared to Luchini's hesitation from time to time, Yun Luofeng's writing was very smooth. However, to everyone's shock, Yun Luofeng and Luchini actually put down their brushes at the same time. Logically speaking, Yun Luofeng's movements were so smooth that she should have finished before Luchini. Why did she finish at the same time? Could it be that this young girl was just pretending to be calm? Was her level too low? Did she make a lot of changes in the content? Soon, a eunuch went to collect the 2 people's scrolls and handed them to the imperial doctors. The imperial doctors first opened Luchini's scroll, their faces full of admiration. Not bad, your answers are very incisive. You didn't make any changes, and even the 3 prescriptions were perfectly matched. You are indeed a rare genius. The imperial doctor's praise made everyone believe in the answer in their hearts. Yun Luofeng couldn't win against Luchini. Thank you, Luchini smiled warmly, raised his hands, and cupped his fists. I have read a lot of books over the years, so I have memorized all the prescriptions. Miss Yun, don't be depressed. It's just a competition, it doesn't prove anything. I hope to fight with you again next year. Luchini said the last sentence to Yun Luofeng. After he finished speaking, he patted his head in annoyance. I forgot that your heavenly cloud nation doesn't have a new year. I'm sorry, Miss Yun. If I knew this, I would have let you have your way. Imperial concubine Ling also smiled. She had said that Luchini would never lose. There was no need to look at Yun Luofeng's questionnaire anymore. No matter how capable she was, she couldn't beat Luchini. Of course, this was what everyone else was thinking. As the examiners, the imperial physicians could not do the same. Therefore, they still abided by the rules and picked up Yun Luofeng's scroll. With a glance, the old man was stunned. Compared to the shock he felt when facing Zhongling, he was completely dumbfounded. Guyang, could it be that Yun Luofeng's answers were too bad? Could it be that they scared you? I saw that her pen never stopped moving just now. Perhaps there are many traces of revision on this scroll. I want to see what she wrote to scare you. After saying this, the other elder snatched the scroll from Guyang's hand. He had been smiling, but when he saw the contents of the scroll, he was just as dumbfounded as Guyang. No way. Is her writing really that bad? I don't think so. Even if she couldn't write it, it shouldn't be so bad. The other old men finally couldn't sit still anymore. They surrounded Guiyang and Yun Luofeng and leaned their heads forward, wanting to see the contents of the scroll. Chapter 975. The handwriting on the white paper was fair and there were no traces of alteration as they had imagined. However, the expressions of the old men were more shocked than the last. They looked as if they had just seen a ghost. This is impossible. One of the old men reached out his hand and took the paper with trembling hands. He mumbled incessantly, "This is impossible, absolutely impossible." The crowd, which had been making a ruckus, fell silent when they saw the old man's strange behavior. No one could understand what had happened for the old man to have such a huge reaction. Guiyang took a deep breath and stared at Yun Luofeng with a complicated look on his face. He then asked calmly, "Miss Yun, did you really write the answers on this paper?" At this moment, even Lu Chenyi felt that something was wrong. He frowned and a sense of confusion flashed across his gentle eyes. "If I didn't write it, could it be that you wrote it?" Yun Luofeng's lips curled into an evil angle as he asked sarcastically. The crowd was a little shocked. Yun Luofeng had written it right under their noses and it could not have been faked. They really could not understand why Guiyang would ask such a stupid question. Guiyang seems to realize that his question was too stupid and an awkward look appeared on his face. "My apologies, Miss Yun. Your answer is simply too shocking. That's why I'm asking you. Shock the secular world." At this moment, everyone's eyes, including the emperor and the imperial consort, were fixed on Guiyang. "Guiyang, what's going on?" The emperor's face sank as he asked coldly. Guiyang was about to answer when an extremely excited old man next to him snatched the opportunity. He was very excited and looked at Yun Luofeng as if he was looking at a mountain of gold. "Your Imperial Majesty, let me answer this question. I hereby announce that Yun Luofeng is the winner of this round." Wow! The crowd was in an uproar. The people who had been mocking Yun Luofeng were now in disbelief. Lu Chenyi quickly stepped forward. His handsome face was ashen as he said, "Are you saying that Yun Luofeng has won? I don't believe it. No matter how good his answers were, I had successfully completed the assessment. At most, it would be a draw. How could he have won?" Indeed, the two of them had handed in their scrolls at the same time. If they had both written down their answers, it would only be considered a tie. Why did Yun Luofeng win? "Young Master Lu, it's not that I'm biased, but Lady Yun's answers are more exquisite than yours." The old man said emotionally, "You wrote down 3 formulas at most, what about her? Can you guess how many she wrote? You probably can't imagine that these herbs can be used to concoct 10 different prescriptions. 10 prescriptions." It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck Lu Chenyi's head. The faces of the women who stood up for Lu Chenyi turned pale with shock. 10 formulas. The old man looked at Lu Chenyi, who had taken a few steps back, and continued to speak excitedly. "In that short period of time, I could only think of 5 prescriptions at most. But she can actually concoct 10 of them. Isn't this her victory?" Guiyang nodded in agreement. "I could only answer 5 at most and Lady Yun had written down the 5 prescriptions that I had thought of. Even if we don't question her about the other 5 prescriptions, based on these 5 prescriptions alone, her victory is well deserved." Lu Chenyi stepped forward and snatched the scroll from the old man's hand. When he saw the clear and elegant handwriting on the white scroll, his handsome face drained of color. Chapter 976. 10 prescriptions. It's really 10 prescriptions. Before the competition, he had already found out about the herbs he would be facing. He had spent a day and a night looking for the prescriptions related to these herbs. Even so, he had only managed to find 3 of them. Yun Luofeng did not know about these herbs beforehand. How did she manage to write down 10 prescriptions in such a short time? Lord Qingmu. A sinister light flashed across Lu Chenyi's eyes. He gripped the paper in his hand tightly and raised his head. You seem to have forgotten that if you give the wrong answer in the test, you will be judged as having failed. The old man, whom he had addressed as Lord Qingmu, was the one who had been agitated just now. When he heard Lu Chenyi's words, he was slightly stunned and said hesitantly, "There is indeed such a rule." So, Lu Chenyi smiled, "Yun Luofeng has lost." As the man's gentle voice slowly fell, the love-struck fans who had been supporting him began to clamor mindlessly. "I knew it. Yun Luofeng can't possibly win against Lord Lu. Since Lord Lu said that she has lost, then she must have lost." However, when Lord Lu said that, he looked so confident and handsome. "I really want to marry him." Those women stared at Lu Chenyi with infatuation in their eyes. In their eyes, Lu Chenyi would never make a mistake. His words would never be wrong. "You said that I've lost." Yun Luofeng looked at Lu Chenyi evilly. Compared to his gentle and confident voice, her voice was rather lazy, but it easily struck a chord in the hearts of others. "That's right, you've lost." Lu Chenyi's eyes were filled with confidence. Everyone knows that snow silkworms live in a world of ice and snow. Their bodies will melt when they come into contact with fire and lose their medicinal value. Normally, snow silkworms are ground into powder and used in medicine. But look at what you've written. One snow silkworm. If a snow silkworm is directly thrown into a pot of boiling medicine, its body will evaporate completely. Not even a powder will be left. This time, the competition had only stated that 3 prescriptions would be made from the herbs present. It did not state that all the herbs must be used. That was why Lu Chenyi avoided Shuekan. After all, there were too few medicinal ingredients that could be used with the snow silkworm. If one was not careful, even if the snow silkworm was ground into powder, it would lose its value. But he hadn't expected that Yun Luofeng would commit such a primitive mistake. "Are you sure the whole snow silkworm can't be used as medicine?" Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows and said with a smile that didn't seem like a smile, "If I let the snow silkworm encounter the fire and it doesn't melt, then what?" Lu Chenyi laughed sarcastically, "Miss Yun, it seems like your medical skills aren't that great. I overestimated you back then. If you would even make such a primitive mistake, what right do you have to be my opponent? Snow silkworms are resistant to fire. How could this be? Did this woman think that everyone in the world was a fool that she could toy with?" Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips. "Since you don't want to believe me, we can make this bet." "All right." Lu Chenyi abruptly slapped the feather fan in his hand and turned to Long Yuan. "Your Majesty, please approve." Long Yuan nodded and said in a deep voice, "We allow it." On an extremely long table in the competition arena, Shuekan lay quietly in a bowl filled with ice. The snow silkworm had clearly been dead for a long time. It was lying motionlessly on the ice. Chapter 977. However, for a precious medicinal ingredient like the snow silkworm, even if it was already dead, it needed to be preserved in an extremely cold environment. Otherwise, its corpse would quickly evaporate. After hearing Long Yuan's words, Yun Luofeng walked over to the snow silkworm. She looked around the long table, then walked over to a leaf without any hesitation. She picked it up and carefully wrapped it around the snow silkworm's corpse. Mysterious ice leaf. Everyone was stunned. They didn't understand what she was going to do with the mysterious ice leaf. Qingmu, Guyang and the others were also stunned as they stared at her in confusion. At this moment, a raging flame burst out from Yun Luofeng's palm, burning the mysterious ice leaf that was wrapped around the snow silkworm. The smile on Lu Chenyi's face became even wider. This girl was really stupid. she directly used fire to burn the snow silkworm. Did she think that a single mysterious ice leaf would be able to block the temperature of the flames? She was really too naive. Not long after, Yun Luofeng put away the flames in her hand. Under everyone's gaze, she slowly opened the mysterious ice leaf. Within the mysterious ice leaf, the snow-white silkworm had already turned black. It emitted a fragrant smell, and Lin Ruobai couldn't help but swallow her saliva as she gently tapped her lips with her finger. At a time like this, if only there was cumin, to a little foodie like Lin Ruobai, her mind was only filled with delicious food. Coupled with the fact that she wasn't proficient in medicine, she had no idea what Yun Luofeng's actions meant. In comparison, the rest of the people present were shocked, and their eyes were filled with astonishment. The snow silkworm didn't disappear. I understand now. Qing Mu suddenly stood up and looked at Yun Luofeng excitedly. You used the mysterious ice leaf to wrap the snow silkworm, not to block the temperature of the flames, but to lock down the silkworm's spiritual energy. Once its spiritual energy is locked down, it won't disappear. The more he spoke, the more excited he became. His eyes sparkled as if he had discovered a new continent. Miss Yun, do you know how big of an impact your actions today will have on the mainland? The snow silkworm has been ground into powder. Although it has stopped the spiritual energy from spreading, its medicinal effects are not as good as before. However, you have solved this ancient problem for the mainland. If you use an entire snow silkworm as medicine, its medicinal effect will increase tenfold. At this moment, everyone ignored Lu Qinyi, who had an ugly expression on his face, and focused their attention on Yun Luofeng. Even the people who had mocked her earlier had changed their expressions at this moment. Before her, no one had thought of using the profound ice leaf to lock onto the snow silkworm's spiritual energy. She was the one who solved the problem that troubled all the doctors in the continent. Even if she were to lose the next round, just this action of hers would be enough to be recorded in the annals of history and be revered by everyone. Lu Qinyi's expression was very ugly. He took advantage of the fact that everyone's attention was on Yun Luofeng to quickly leave. He no longer had the face to stay here. Miss Yun, Guiyang looked at Yun Luofeng and smiled. I saw that you were using your left hand to write. Is there something wrong with your right hand? If you need anything, you can tell us. We will do our best to help you since you solved this problem. Yun Luofeng subconsciously touched his numb right hand and shook his head. No need. Just as she had said before, she did not regret losing her right arm. Chapter 978. When Long Yuan saw that the imperial physicians held Yun Luofeng in such high esteem, his brows that were as cold as a mountain frowned slightly. Indeed, Yun Luofeng was so knowledgeable that he could even solve a problem like this. However, this did not mean that she would be as outstanding in the next round. Yun Luofeng, your knowledge is truly admirable. Long Yuan swept a cold glance at Yun Luofeng and spoke calmly. However, you seem to have made a mistake. In this round, you only need to write down 3 prescriptions. It's useless no matter how much you write. Hence, we declare that this round is a draw and both parties may advance to the next round. Long Yuan's voice was dignified and dignified. Forget about the crowd, even Qing Mu and the others were stunned by Long Yuan's decision. Your Imperial Majesty, Qing Mu frowned, everyone can see that the winner of this round is Miss Yun. Lu Qinyi has lost. And he had lost completely. We were the ones who set the rules. Long Yuan's expression gradually became impatient. We declare that this round is a draw. Do you have any objections? Qing Mu's expression changed. He wanted to say something but was pulled back by Guiyang. The 2 old men looked at each other and realized where the problem lay. Lu Qinyi was from Lanxiang country. His Imperial Majesty doted on Imperial concubine Ling the most. He would naturally help his beloved concubine. How could he allow Lu Qinyi to be eliminated in the first round? Qing Mu's heart was filled with anger at the thought of this. In his entire life, he had never participated in politics and had no interest in fame or fortune. He had only focused on studying medicine. Now that he had met a genius like Yun Luofeng, how could he not pity him? Who would have thought that His Imperial Majesty would be bewitched by Imperial Concubine Ling and would even do such a thing? Imperial Concubine Ling was truly a devilish concubine who could bring disaster to a country. Forget it, Guiyang whispered in his ear, no one can change His Imperial Majesty's decision. However, I don't think that Lu Qinyi can defeat Yun Luofeng. Qing Mu took a deep breath and suppressed the anger in his heart. He looked at Yun Luofeng apologetically. Miss Yun, everyone can see that you've won the duel with Lu Qinyi, but I was forced to do such a heartless thing. Compared to Yun Luofeng, what was Lu Qinyi? Unfortunately, he was unable to protect this genius at this moment. Long Yuan's face darkened as he glared sharply at Greenwood. Greenwood acted as if he didn't see it and gave Yun Luofeng an apologetic smile. Fame and fortune. Power. To him, they were all fleeting clouds. If His Majesty was really angered by his words, he would just leave the Tianhui Empire. Anyway, the reason why he joined the Tianhui Empire was to study medicine with these powerful doctors. Thank you. Yun Luofeng smiled faintly. She did not blame Qing Mu for not being able to protect her. Because this old man was only a subject, he had no choice but to obey the emperor's orders. However, the old man was clearly on her side. She would remember this friendship in her heart. He announced that Lu Qinyi and I were tied, and I accepted it. Yun Luofeng raised his head and looked at Long Yuan with an evil gaze. Because I will make him lose even more miserably. The girl's voice was full of confidence. Her dark eyes were as unfathomable as the night. She had accepted Lu Qinyi's result because she would make him lose even more miserably. In this world, who else could say such arrogant words? Chapter 979. Long Yuan's face was ashen. The veins on his forehead bulged and he clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. Yun Luofeng, I hope you have the same confidence to face the next competition. In the end, all his anger turned into a warning. Long Yuan stood up, snorted, and left with a swing of his sleeves. Imperial Concubine Ling looked at Yun Luofeng with a venomous look and quickly followed Long Yuan. Miss Yun. Qing Mu glanced at Long Yuan and Imperial Concubine Ling as he frowned. Soon after, he turned towards Yun Luofeng and said, the second round of the competition will be held in the afternoon. Go back and have a good rest. Come and participate in the competition when it's time. Yun Luofeng nodded slightly and slowly walked towards Lin Ruobai and the others. He raised his lips and said, let's go. The inner courtyard of the palace was extremely quiet. Yun Luofeng had just walked to the palace gate when suddenly, a palace maid blocked her way. She said expressionlessly, our imperial concubine wants you to see her. She had used the word let instead of please. The strength in her words was obvious. Yun Luofeng did not even raise her head. I'm not interested in her. You. The palace maid's expression changed and she pointed angrily at Yun Luofeng. You really don't know what's good for you. How noble is our imperial concubine. It's your good fortune that she wants to see you. Don't be so insensible. Yun Luofeng crossed her arms and looked up at the palace maid who was blocking her way. If she wants to see me, then let her come herself. I'm not interested in seeing her. How dare you? The palace maid shouted angrily. Her eyes were full of anger. Whoosh! At this moment, the people behind Yun Luofeng pulled out their weapons at the same time and stared coldly at the palace maid. The soldiers of the army were trained by Yun Qingya. Therefore, these people inevitably carried some of Meng Yong's unyielding aura. It was this aura that made the palace maid take a few steps back in fear. Her face turned pale. Yun Luofeng, this is the Tianhui Empire. The palace maid took a deep breath and gritted her teeth. If you don't want to provoke the Tianhui Empire, then advise your people to put away their weapons and come with me to see the imperial concubine. Yun Luofeng smiled. That smile seemed to have come from the depths of hell, making people shudder. Looking at Yun Luofeng approaching her, the palace maid's eyes darkened. Just as she was about to order the hidden guards to attack, the girl's lazy and evil voice slowly rang out. My people have always been like this. She gently raised the corner of her lips, and the smile in her eyes became more pronounced. There was a faint dangerous light in her pitch-black eyes. I still say the same thing. If Imperial Consort Ling wants to see me, let her visit me in person. Maybe I'll receive her if I'm in a good mood. If she wants to force me, then I, Yun Luofeng, will not submit to the rich and powerful even if I have to fight to the death. The palace maid was stunned. She looked at the arrogant girl in front of her in astonishment and swallowed hard. The young girl smiled again. Moreover, I'm a mad dog when I go crazy. If she's not afraid of death, she can come and provoke me. Even if my soul disperses, I'll bite her until she's paralyzed. No one understood Yun Luofeng's personality better than the members of the Steel Flame Legion. She was indeed a lunatic. A lunatic who would never let herself be at a disadvantage. She was the kind of person who would rather die than cripple the other party's arm. Provoke her. What was the difference between provoking a lunatic? The palace maid was obviously shocked by Yun Luofeng's words. Her expression became more and more unsightly. Even when the white-clothed girl led the people behind her away, she still couldn't react. Chapter 980. After a while, the maid came back to her senses and hurriedly ran to Imperial Concubine Ling's chamber. In the chamber, Imperial Concubine Ling heard the maid's exaggerated report and was so angry that she smashed the teacup in her hand on the ground. This Yun Luofeng really doesn't know what's good for her. I originally wanted to take her in as my subordinate because she has some skills. I didn't think that she would dare not see me. She even wants me to pay her a visit. I really don't know where she got the face to say such words. The maid was so scared that she didn't dare to say a word and knelt on the ground, trembling. Imperial Concubine Ling's eyes flashed and she laughed silently. Yun Luofeng, since you won't give me face, don't blame me for being ruthless. If I don't get rid of you, I won't be happy. Especially since this woman was so beautiful. Although Her Majesty didn't care about Yun Luofeng now, if this Yun Luofeng shamelessly wanted to seduce Her Majesty, which man could resist such a temptation? After all, which woman in this world didn't covet power? Xiao Fang, go to the inn and inform Prince Jiu Feihua of Lanxiang country. Tell him to kill Yun Luofeng in tomorrow's competition no matter what. As a condition, I will help him break through. Today's competition was medical skills, and the battle would be held tomorrow. Injuries and deaths were not allowed in the arena, but swords had no eyes. If Yun Luofeng died, it wouldn't be blamed on Lanxiang country. Thinking of this, Imperial Concubine Ling's smile became even wider and a sinister light flashed in her beautiful eyes. Yes, Your Highness. The palace maid bowed and retreated respectfully. Imperial Concubine Ling looked coldly in the direction of the maid's departure and gritted her teeth. Yun Luofeng, if you can't be used by me, then you can only die. In the imperial study, there was a serious atmosphere. A man dressed in a bright yellow dragon robe sat on the dragon throne and looked at the old man standing below with a serious expression. "Qingmu, what business do you have with me now?" Qingmu clasped his fists together. "Your Majesty, I believe that Yun Luofeng is very talented. In the future, he will definitely become a famous doctor. I would like to ask Your Majesty to help me recruit Yun Luofeng, a renowned physician." Long Yuan laughed mockingly. "Qingmu, you're overthinking things. Yun Luofeng is indeed knowledgeable, but that doesn't mean that she's definitely powerful. Medicine not only tests one's knowledge, but also their ability to change. Furthermore, their hands-on ability is also very strong. Yun Luofeng only read a few ancient medical books and learned how to use the snow silkworm. This doesn't represent her ability." Greenwood's expression froze, and his voice became a bit anxious. "Your Majesty, please trust me. Yun Luofeng is definitely not a small fry. Sooner or later, she will become a dragon, and when that time comes, it will not be so easy to rope her in. Greenwood, there's no need for you to say anything more. There's no place for her in my kingdom of No Hui." Long Yuan waved his hand, his face expressionless. Greenwood sighed dejectedly. He opened his mouth, wanting to say a few more words, but found that Long Yuan had already closed his eyes, not intending to listen to him. He laughed bitterly, turned around and walked out of the imperial study. At the door, Guiyang was waiting for him. Seeing Greenwood walk out with a helpless expression, he could already guess what had happened. His Majesty does not agree to rope in Miss Yun. Chapter 981. Qingmu nodded. Because of Imperial Concubine Ling, His Majesty has a strong opinion of her. It's a pity that such a peerless genius will be buried here. If Yun Luofeng could enter the Tianhui Empire and receive the full support of the empire, her growth would be extremely fast. Guiyang also felt it was a pity. Miss Yun is indeed a genius. If the Wuhui Empire can have her, the strength of the Imperial Hospital will also improve a lot. However, good advice is unpleasant to the ear. His Majesty has been bewitched by Imperial Concubine Ling. How can he listen to us? Qingmu paused and said, "I plan to see Miss Yun. Even if I can't work with her, it's fine to discuss medical skills with her." "Okay," Guiyang nodded. "I have to prepare for the competition in the afternoon, so I won't go. In addition, remind Miss Yun to be careful of Lanxiang. I just heard that Imperial Concubine Ling's maid invited Miss Yun but was rejected. According to Imperial Concubine Ling's temperament, she will not let it go." Qingmu pondered for a moment. "I will remind her." After saying this, he quickly walked out of the palace and gradually disappeared from Guiyang's sight. Guiyang looked at the closed door of the imperial study and shook his head in disappointment. Ever since Imperial Concubine Ling appeared, His Majesty had no interest in politics, causing the ministers to be extremely disappointed. If the Wuhui Empire had not been supported by His Majesty, it would have fallen long ago. If His Majesty continued like this, the ministers would want to retire and return to their hometown. Even finding a place to live in seclusion was better than staying here, at the station. Yun Luofeng, Lin Ruobai, and the others parted ways in the courtyard and returned to their respective rooms. But before she had time to rest, there was a knock on the door. "Miss Yun, I have come to visit you. I wonder if you have the time." An old figure came from outside the door. It was an extremely familiar voice. Yun Luofeng hurriedly put on her clothes and sat at the table. She raised her eyebrows and said, "Come in." The door was pushed open and the old figure of Qingmu slowly walked in. "Master Qingmu, what important matter do you have to discuss with me?" The young girl raised her eyebrows slightly and smiled. Greenwood sighed. "Miss Yun, I wanted to rope you into the Wuhui Empire, but His Majesty refused. Hearing this, Yun Luofeng smiled and said, Master Qingmu, I am from the Heavenly Cloud Empire. Even if the Emperor of the Wuhui Empire does not refuse, I will not join you. Jun Fengling had married into the Yi family, which meant that Yun Zhao's roots were there. She would never leave Heavenly Cloud Nation. Moreover, compared to Long Yuan, the Emperor of the Heavenly Cloud Nation was much more open-minded. Qingmu bitterly smiled and said, Miss Yun, the reason I came here this time is to remind you of something. You must be careful of Lanxiang Nation. Lanxiang Nation. Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes. They want to die. Why shouldn't I grant them their wish? Greenwood stared blankly for a moment before helplessly shaking his head. Don't underestimate the Lanxiang Nation. They have more Holy Spirit practitioners than the Heavenly Cloud Nation. Moreover, Imperial Concubine Ling is favored by His Majesty. If you hurt the Lanxiang Nation, His Majesty will definitely not let you go. Qingmu's words were filled with disappointment. If it wasn't for my original beliefs supporting me, I would have left the Heavenly Cloud Empire a long time ago. Hearing Qingmu's words, Yun Luofeng's eyes flashed a few times. Chapter 982. She smiled and said, Master Aoki, I have an idea. In the Wuhui continent, no one has established an organization for doctors, so I plan to be the leader. Just like the Roaring Dragon Continent's Doctors Guild, there is no such organization in the Wuhui continent. That was why Yun Luofeng had such a thought a few months ago. Don't look down on these doctors. You should know that even the emperor of a country would have to be courteous to these famous doctors. After all, who hasn't fallen sick before? Just look at the Roaring Dragon Continent's Doctors Guild's position in the Wuhui continent. If she could gather all the famous doctors in the world, even if the organization's overall strength cannot compare to the three great kingdoms would not dare to provoke her. Qingmu was shocked. You mean, you want to establish an organization? No, Yun Luofeng shook her head. The organization I plan to establish will be called the Medical Tower. The Medical Tower is split into 10 levels. For example, a student who has just started learning medicine can only stay on the first level. If their medical skills pass the examination, they can go to the second level. I will place some medical books and prescriptions in every level. These books and prescriptions definitely do not exist in the outside world. If you want to exchange for these items, you will have to use medicinal ingredients. Qingmu was shocked, as if he never thought that Yun Luofeng would think of such an idea. More importantly, her words about medical skills and prescriptions that did not exist in the outside world had completely stirred Qingmu's heart. Miss Yun, there's something wrong with your idea, Qingmu frowned. What if those people sell the medical skills and prescriptions for a high price? That way, you'll lose too much. Yun Luofeng smiled and waved her sleeves. In an instant, countless golden seeking mice appeared in the room. Qingmu was dumbfounded. How could she have so many spiritual beasts? Moreover, these golden seeking mice's strength. Even the weakest was at the celestial spirit stage. Miss Yun, this is... Qingmu's voice trembled, filled with indescribable excitement. All doctors who enter the third level of the medical tower and above will receive a golden seeking mouse. Furthermore, I will make it clear that these golden seeking mice will be used to monitor them. Qingmu fell silent. After a while, he said, Miss Yun, aren't you afraid that others will object to your actions? Yun Luofeng smiled confidently. If you have any objections, you don't have to join the medical tower. However, Master Qingmu, as a doctor, you should know how attractive those medical books and prescriptions are to them. Furthermore, I'm not asking for much. As long as they don't betray the medical tower and don't leak the prescriptions and medical books, they'll be completely free at other times and don't have to stay in the medical tower at all times. Besides, there aren't many people on the mainland who can break through to the venerable spiritualist level. Therefore, as a heavenly spiritualist, the gold-seeking rat will undoubtedly be a very powerful fighting force. How many people do you think would refuse a spirit beast that could help them in battle for free? Greenwood's heart was filled with shock. He couldn't believe that such an idea had come from a little girl who wasn't even 20 yet. Miss Yun, I am from the Tianhui Empire. Why did you tell me this idea? Yun Luofeng smiled faintly and a cunning light flashed in his eyes. I have long heard of Master Qing Mu's power and character. So, I now solemnly request that you become an elder of the medical tower. Chapter 983. Qing Mu blankly blinked his eyes. This little girl was trying to poach someone from the Heavenly Hui Empire's territory. However, ha ha ha. Master Qing Mu laughed twice. After this competition, I will submit my resignation to His Majesty and return home. At that time, when your medical tower is completed, I will immediately go there. Nothing was easier to win people's hearts than to acknowledge his strength and character. All right. Yun Luofeng extended his hand to Qing Mu. I will wait for you in the medical tower. Qing Mu's face was full of smiles as he held Yun Luofeng's hand. At that time, I might bring a few old men with me to join your medical tower. I wonder if you can accept them. Yun Luofeng smiled slightly. As long as they are willing to join my medical tower, I will welcome them. Furthermore, I will also give them the position of elder. I have no other requests for you, only one thing, never betray. I have no other interests in this life, my only hobby is to study medicine. The few old men I am going to bring are the same as me, not seeking fame or fortune. So, no matter how high the price other powers offer, I will not abandon the medical tower. Qing Mu laughed twice, his old face full of smiles. Indeed, fame and money were more important to him than medical skills. Even if it was for the sake of the few medical skills and prescriptions that Yun Luofeng had proposed, he would still stay in the medical tower for the rest of his life. Never abandon. After Qing Mu left with a face full of smiles, Fire walked out from the divine grimoire space. She sat on the beam and looked at Yun Luofeng with a smile. Master, you are really sinister. This Qing Mu obviously has quite a bit of influence in the Imperial Hospital. If he were to open his mouth, perhaps a lot of people would follow him and run away. At that time, when the Emperor of the Heavenly Hui Empire sees his empty Imperial Hospital, he would probably have the heart to cry. Yun Luofeng raised the corner of his lips and said, after the medical tower is established, the medicinal herbs that the small tree and the rat clan need will finally be settled. As she finished speaking, she seemed to have thought of something and turned to the gold-seeking rat clan. In the future, when I establish the medical tower, you will follow the people in the medical tower and supervise their every word and action. Also, you will come and find me every half a month. I will give you the elixirs to consume. GG. All the rats cried out excitedly. To them, as long as there were elixirs, they would definitely do their best to complete the task given by Yun Luofeng. Meng Meng, you don't need to go. Yun Luofeng turned towards Meng Meng, raising the corner of his lips. You and your mother will stay by my side. The Rat Empress was already a venerable spirit, so she couldn't let her leave. As for Meng Meng, Milk Tea was infatuated with her, so she couldn't bear to part with her. How could she do something like separating them? Meng Meng nodded and squeaked twice. Meng Meng, you've already reached the advanced celestial spirit realm. I'll ask little Mo to leave the spiritual herbs in the medicine field to you later. You should break through to the venerable spirit realm as soon as possible. Ming Ming's eyes were filled with excitement. She looked at Yun Luofeng with gratitude. If it wasn't for her, perhaps the Rat Clan would still be the clan that was being bullied in the Forest of No Return, and she wouldn't have such power. You don't need to thank me, Yun Luofeng curled his lips. You should thank milk tea. Back then, he was the one who asked me to accept you. In fact, when Yun Luofeng first saw the rat clan, she had wanted to take them for her own use. However, in front of Meng Meng, she had to return the credit to milk tea. And she could only help him this much. Chapter 984. In the afternoon. Many people had heard about what happened in the morning, so the venue was even livelier than before. Lu Chenyi stood in the middle of the circle of women with a gentle smile on his face. He waved his folding fan and patiently answered the women's questions. However, when he saw the girl who walked in from outside the venue, his gentle eyes darkened, but he quickly returned to his sunny smile. Miss Yun, I hope that you will be lucky enough to defeat me in the next battle. In other words, Yun Luofeng's victory had nothing to do with her strength. Idiot! Yi Shima snorted coldly. He raised his eyebrows with a touch of arrogance. The winner takes all. Since you lost, it means that you are not as good as me. A person who can't even afford to lose is destined to be a failure. Lu Chenyi's eyes darkened again, and his lips curved into a smile. His smile was no longer as gentle as before. Instead, it was filled with a sense of danger. What if I defeat Yun Luofeng? Yi Shima smiled sarcastically. Defeat my sister-in-law? Are you out of your mind? You have already lost once, and you still dare to talk nonsense. If they were in Tianyun Nation, Yi Shima would have already attacked him. Unfortunately, they were in Tianyun Nation now. If he was not careful, the entire Yi family would be implicated. Lu Chenyi gently waved his feather fan and looked at Yun Luofeng. If I defeat you, I want you to be my woman. Do you dare to accept? This woman was too arrogant, and he wanted to ruthlessly trample on her dignity and tear off her arrogant face. Yun Luofeng stopped in her tracks and finally turned around. Her words were so arrogant that everyone in the venue instantly turned to look at her. Do you think you are qualified to compete with me? Do you think you are qualified to compete with me? This woman was as arrogant as ever. Didn't you, Lu Chenyi, say that you want to compete with me? What right do you have to compete with me? After saying this, Yun Luofeng slowly turned around under Lu Chenyi's gloomy gaze and slowly walked towards the venue. Lu Chenyi's face darkened, and there was a hint of anger in his eyes. Yun Luofeng, are you afraid? Do you not dare to accept my challenge? It turns out that the people of Heavenly Cloud Nation are a bunch of cowards. Master! Master! Lin Ruobai and the rest of the army knew that this was Lu Chenyi's way of provoking them, but they couldn't help but look at Yun Luofeng anxiously. Yun Luofeng stopped in her tracks and slowly turned around. Her dark eyes gradually landed on Lu Chenyi. Lu Chenyi's lips curled into a faint smile. He knew that everyone would be affected by his provocation, even Yun Luofeng was no exception. Miss Yun. Lu Chenyi softened his tone and smiled at Yun Luofeng. Just as he opened his mouth, he was interrupted by the young girl's voice. I don't accept your challenge, not because I'm afraid of you, but because what you said made me feel disgusted. My man, there is only one. I also won't allow anyone to bet on this matter. Yun Luofeng paused for a moment before continuing. If you really want to make a bet with me, that's fine. If I lose, I'll cut off one of my arms. If you lose, it'll be the same. Are you willing to accept? Lu Chenyi's face was a little pale. Cut off one of my arms. That's too cruel. How can I bear to let a beauty like you destroy her own arm? How about this, if you lose, you become my servant. If I lose, I will also become your servant. What do you think? Chapter 985. To be honest, Lu Chenyi didn't have much confidence in himself, so he didn't dare to accept Yun Luofeng's proposal. The arm was too important for a cultivator. Cutting off one's arm was equivalent to destroying one's future. What, you don't dare to accept? Yun Luofeng narrowed his eyes and smiled evilly. Or, are you afraid? Afraid? Lu Qinyi sneered. Why would I be afraid? Yun Luofeng, your right arm is already problematic. If you lose, you will choose to give up your right arm. Isn't that too unfair? Yun Luofeng glanced at Lu Qinyi. If I lose, I will cripple my left arm. Do you dare to accept? Lu Qinyi's eyes darkened, and his gentle face turned pale. He thought for a while and gritted his teeth. Fine, I accept. So what if he lost in the end? With Imperial concubine Ling's support, Yun Luofeng couldn't cripple his arm. Let's go. Yun Luofeng smiled and slowly walked towards the heavenly cloud nation. After a while, surrounded by a group of eunuchs and palace maids, Long Yuan and Imperial concubine Ling walked over and took their seats. They glanced coldly at the geniuses from the various nations. The second round of competition will be held in the medicine tower. This medicine tower was passed down by an ancestor thousands of years ago. Its purpose is to test the medical skills of the world. There are illusions in the medicine tower, and everyone will encounter different illusions. The only similarity is that a patient will appear in front of you. If you cure the patient, you can go to the next floor of the medicine tower. Whoever reaches the 8th floor first will be the champion of this competition. In addition, there are all kinds of medicinal herbs in the illusion, and there are also stoves for decocting medicine. You will use this environment to cure the patient. If you fail, you will be immediately eliminated from the tower. Your Majesty. A green-robed woman walked out from the crowd. This woman was incomparably beautiful, and her eyes were lively. She looked at Long Yuan and asked, what if no one can reach the 8th floor? If no one can reach the 8th floor, then the ranking will be based on who reaches the 7th floor first, and so on. The first person to be eliminated will be at the bottom. Long Yuan's tone was very courteous towards the green-robed woman. He had a smile on his face as he said, by the way, let me remind you that there is a time limit to the treatment. If you are unable to successfully ascend to the next level within half an incense stick's time, you will still be eliminated. Yi Shimao glanced at the lady in green and whispered into Yun Luofeng's ear, sister-in-law, this lady is Princess Feng Qing from the Flowing Moon Empire, which is ranked second among the 3 empires. People from the Flowing Moon Empire. Could it be that Long Yuan would be so polite to her? In the end, this Tianhui Empire only bullied the weak and feared the strong. Yun Luofeng's fingers stroked his chin as his eyes flickered a few times. However, the setting of the medicine pagoda was similar to the medical pagoda she had envisioned. If he could obtain the illusion of the medicine tower, he might be able to use it for the test. After Long Yuan finished speaking, he ordered a eunuch to lead the geniuses of the various countries to the medicine tower. Fortunately, this medicine tower wasn't very far from the venue, and it didn't take long for Yun Luofeng and the others to arrive at the foot of a tall tower. A strange look flashed across Yun Luofeng's eyes. Logically speaking, this medicine tower was so tall that under normal circumstances, it would be easy to see it from outside the palace. However, if they hadn't entered this place, they wouldn't have known that there was a medicine tower here. Chapter 986. Everyone, please come in. The eunuch used the key to open the door of the medicine tower and spoke in a sharp voice. The geniuses hurriedly rushed into the medicine tower and disappeared into the white fog. At this moment, 10 paralyzed patients appeared in front of Yun Luofeng. They were all holding their chests and wailing, their pale faces filled with pain. Yun Luofeng was startled. Did Long Yuan say that there were 10 patients in the first stage? I don't think so. Fire had appeared beside Yun Luofeng. She leaped and landed on a tree at the side, swinging her legs as she looked down at the young girl. Master, with your strength, saving these 10 patients shouldn't be a problem. Yun Luofeng shook his head. I'm worried about Zhonglinger. After all, she hasn't been in contact with medicine for long. It's impossible for her to save 10 patients in half an incense stick's time. With Zhonglinger's strength, saving 10 patients in half an incense stick's time was impossible. How could she not be worried about her? Forget it, I'll go to the next level first. I must win this time. On a high platform outside the medicine tower, Long Yuan sat upright, his cold eyes filled with a sinister look and a sneer on his face. Imperial concubine Ling smiled as she nestled in her arms, the smile on her lips revealing a hint of excitement. Yun Luofeng, didn't you make a bet with Lu Qinyi? Then this time, I'll let you lose completely, there's no chance for you to make a comeback. This is bad, something big has happened. At this moment, a figure rushed over in a hurry, gasping for breath. That person was dressed in the Imperial physician's attire and was obviously from the Imperial hospital. He quickly walked in front of Qingmu and the others, his face filled with anxiety. Lord Qingmu, Lord Guiyang, something big has happened. I just went to investigate the medicine tower and found that someone had secretly released the toughest formation in the medicine tower. There were 2 types of formations in the medicine tower. One was an ordinary formation used to test the strength of the young geniuses, and the other was used as a standard to enter the Imperial hospital. 10 patients would appear in the formation at the same time, and each patient's condition was extremely serious. If the person facing this formation could reach the 4th level, he would have the right to enter the Imperial hospital. Greenwood had experienced the harshness of this formation before, and he quickly stood up as he asked anxiously, who took out this formation? It's utterly impossible for those young geniuses to deal with it. Right, have you found out who's facing that formation? The person from the Imperial Hospital cautiously glanced at Qingmu. It's Yun Luofeng. Boom. Like a bolt from the blue, Greenwood staggered and nearly fell to the ground. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at Long Yuan and Imperial concubine Ling on the high platform and questioned, Your Majesty, apart from the people of the Imperial Hospital, only you are qualified to enter this medicine tower. Therefore, if I may be so bold as to ask, is this matter done by Your Majesty? Greenwood gritted his teeth, his eyes filled with disappointment and anger. He knew that the Emperor did not like Yun Luofeng, but he never thought that he would use such a method to make things difficult for her. This duel was unfair. Long Yuan furrowed his brows and his expression turned cold and stern. Greenwood, how dare you? This matter is clearly the responsibility of the Imperial Hospital, yet you still dare to question me. You. Greenwood trembled with anger. Chapter 987. He had always been disappointed with Long Yuan, but he had never been as desperate as he was today. When the late emperor died, his brothers fought for the throne. If it were not for his protection, Long Yuan, the crown prince, would not have been able to ascend the throne so smoothly. Now, the person he had supported had become a fatuous emperor who was obsessed with beauty. Qingmu, Guiyang was afraid that he would say something rebellious again and quickly pulled him back. He frowned and looked at Long Yuan. Your Majesty, I plead with Your Majesty to allow the geniuses from all the countries to start the competition again. Long Yuan sneered, the competition has already begun. How can it be stopped just because you say so? I cannot let Yun Luofeng delay the other geniuses. This time, even Guiyang and the others were completely disappointed. Were they really going to continue to be loyal to a fatuous and tyrannical emperor? Now that Long Yuan was following Imperial concubine Ling's orders, it would not be long before he would listen to her and cripple them. Qingmu must have eaten a bear's heart and a leopard's gall to dare to talk to me. Long Yuan's face darkened and he snorted coldly. Imperial concubine Ling's eyes flickered a few times. She smiled lightly and leaned on Long Yuan's chest. Your Majesty, our Tianhui Empire does not lack powerful doctors. I don't think Qing Mu is of any use. Just dismiss him. Long Yuan held his forehead, feeling a headache coming on. Qing Mu has always been against me. Do you think I don't want to cripple him? It's just that Qing Mu once saved my father's life. If I kick him out, I'm afraid that the officials will be disappointed. Imperial concubine Ling raised her eyebrows and did not continue to persuade Long Yuan. Her beautiful eyes swept over Qing Mu with a sneer on her face. Qing Mu must not stay. Otherwise, this old man might complain about her to His Majesty at some point in time. If His Majesty really did not want to kick him out, she did not mind using some means to ruin his reputation. When everyone in the army heard Qing Mu and Long Yuan's words, they were all furious. If Imperial concubine Ling had not stopped them, they would have rushed forward and fought with their lives. This is the Wuhui Empire. Master has not come out yet. Let's not make trouble for her. I believe in Master's strength. This difficulty will not be a problem for her. These were Imperial concubine Ling's words. It was also because of these words that the army's restlessness calmed down. Yes. In their hearts, Yun Luofeng was a godlike existence. No hardships or tribulations could defeat her. Now, all they had to do was wait here quietly. That would be enough. Half an incense stick's time has passed. Someone has been eliminated. In that instant, everyone turned in the direction of the medicine tower. The door of the medicine tower was pushed open, and several young men walked out with their heads hung low. They couldn't even pass the first floor, so it was easy to imagine what kind of punishment they would face when they returned. Your Majesty, Yun Luofeng's speed is really slow. Imperial concubine Ling smiled mockingly. She's walking so slowly even when leaving the medicine tower. I'm guessing that she's not satisfied, so she doesn't want to leave the medicine tower. If they failed, the medicine tower would teleport them to the entrance and let them leave on their own. Even if they failed in the upper floors, they would still be teleported to the entrance of the first floor. Therefore, Imperial concubine Ling guessed that Yun Luofeng must be hiding in the back and refusing to come out, afraid of embarrassing himself. Long Yuan said coldly, even if she doesn't want to leave, the medicine tower will throw her out to prevent her from affecting the other matches. Chapter 988. Saving 10 patients in the time it took for half an incense stick to burn. Only the old men from the Imperial Hospital could do this. Yun Luofeng was such a young genius. Where did she get this kind of ability? Therefore, everyone believed that she would be eliminated on the first level. My beloved, just wait and see. If Yun Luofeng refuses to leave, the medicine tower will lose its temper. Long Yuan laughed as he turned his gaze towards the medicine tower and spoke slowly. However, when he looked, his entire expression changed. The medicine tower did not toss Yun Luofeng out as he had expected. Instead, it slowly closed up. Once the medicine tower closes, it means that those who have been eliminated have left the medicine tower. Is there something wrong with the medicine tower? Imperial concubine Ling asked as she bit her lip. In an instant, Long Yuan's sharp gaze turned towards the young men who had been eliminated. Have those who have been eliminated left the medicine tower? Is there anyone hiding inside and unwilling to come out? The young men were stunned and shook their heads. No, we are the only ones who have been eliminated. Long Yuan's expression became even uglier. You didn't see Yun Luofeng. Reporting to your Imperial Majesty, only a few of us have been eliminated. We didn't see anyone else. No Yun Luofeng. How is that possible? Long Yuan clenched his fists tightly as his expression became even more ashen. Half an hour has passed. Why hasn't Yun Luofeng been eliminated yet? Similarly, the others were dumbfounded because of this. Yun Luofeng hasn't been eliminated? Does this mean that she has successfully entered the next level? Qing Mu and Guyang looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. If Yun Luofeng has really succeeded, then this woman's talent is unparalleled. Qing Mu, what level do you think Miss Yun will reach? Guyang slowly regained his composure and asked with a smile. Qing Mu curled his lips. The difficulty of the 4th level has already surpassed the difficulty of the 8th level. Therefore, I'm guessing that she will reach the 3rd or 4th level. Gasp! Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. The difficulty of the 4th level has already surpassed the difficulty of the 8th level. Furthermore, Master Qing Mu said that she will reach the 4th level. A mocking laugh rang out from the crowd. She was only lucky to be able to break through the 1st level. It doesn't mean that she will have the same luck again. So, this time, she will definitely be eliminated. Time ticked by, and before long, half an incense stick's time had passed. The door of the medicine tower opened once again, and a few young men and women appeared at the door dejectedly. However, there was still no sign of Yun Luofeng among them. This is impossible. Long Yuan abruptly rose to his feet and stared fixedly at the medicine tower's door. The time limit for the 2nd level has passed. Those who have not been able to save the patients during this period will be chased out of the medicine tower. Why is there still no Yun Luofeng? Your Majesty. Imperial concubine Ling hesitated for a while and asked, "Is there something wrong with the medicine tower? So much so that you closed the door before you could eliminate all the people." When Long Yuan heard this, his gaze turned towards the few dejected people and he said sternly, "Have you seen Yun Luofeng?" Those people were stunned for a moment, then they hurriedly shook their heads. "It seems like she hasn't come out yet." If there was a problem with the medicine tower and not everyone was eliminated, then why did these people claim that they had not seen Yun Luofeng? Especially since there were people from Lanxiang country among those who had been eliminated. It was even more impossible for them to have helped Yun Luofeng cheat. Chapter 989. Long Yuan's body went limp and he slumped into his chair. His dignified features were now completely pale and his expression was extremely ugly. Those who were eliminated still didn't know what happened. They looked at each other and then someone explained the situation to them. When they heard that the array Yun Luofeng faced was used for the Imperial Hospital's assessment, they were dumbfounded. In this subtle atmosphere, half an incense stick of time passed. At the same time, the door of the medicine tower was pushed open. Another group of young people who didn't pass the test stood at the door dejectedly. However, among those people, Yun Luofeng was still not there. The 3rd floor's test is over. Since Yun Luofeng wasn't eliminated, it means that she has entered the 4th floor. The 4th floor was only accessible to the doctors of the Imperial Hospital. And now, Yun Luofeng had already entered the 4th floor. Hiss. Everyone couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air as they looked at the closed door of the medicine tower. Guyang, do you think this girl can successfully enter the 5th floor? Qing Mu's face was full of excitement and his voice was trembling. No one knew better than the people of the Imperial Hospital how difficult this test was. If Yun Luofeng could successfully break through to the 5th floor, it meant that her strength wasn't much different from the doctors of the Imperial Hospital. But the doctors of the Imperial Hospital were already over 50 years old. How old was this girl? To have such achievements at such a young age, the Tianyun nation had really picked up a treasure this time. The time for the 5th floor was also up. Yun Luofeng was still not among the young people who stepped out. The crowd had already become numb from the initial shock. They seemed to have accepted the shock that Yun Luofeng had brought to them. Qing Mu and Guyang looked at each other and saw the joy in each other's eyes. They could imagine that if Yun Luofeng's actions today were to spread, even the two empires would do their best to win her over. How many floors do you think Yun Luofeng can reach? It's hard to say, but I think she's almost at her limit. The sixth floor will definitely eliminate her. The crowd began to talk. Their eyes were no longer filled with mockery. Instead, they were guessing how far Yun Luofeng could go. The door of the medicine tower opened again. Lu Chenyi placed his hands behind his back and walked out with a smile on his face. He looked around and asked, "Where's Yun Luofeng? Are you hiding now that you've lost? You guys should let her out." "Don't worry, Lu Chenyi, always have tender and protective feelings for the fairer sex. I won't really break her arm." In the medicine pagoda, those who were able to enter the sixth level were already considered geniuses. Therefore, Lu Chenyi was certain that Yun Luofeng would not be able to reach this step. What puzzled Lu Chenyi was that if it was a normal day, those love-struck fools would definitely surround him and ask about his well-being. But now, not a single one of them came forward. Everyone was looking at him with a strange expression. Lu Chenyi finally sensed that something was wrong. He frowned and asked, "What happened?" At this time, Imperial concubine Ling, who was on the high platform, looked a little embarrassed. She said in a stern tone, "Lu Chenyi, you've really embarrassed our Lanxiang country." He only reached the sixth floor and came out. Even Yun Luofeng hasn't left the medicine tower. Lu Chenyi's face darkened when he heard Imperial concubine Ling scolding. However, what she said next stunned him. Chapter 990. Yun Luofeng hadn't left the medicine tower. He turned his head in shock and looked at the tightly shut door. His face turned pale in an instant. His pair of gentle eyes were also filled with shock. Imperial concubine Ling simply ignored her. She snorted coldly and looked at the medicine tower with gloomy eyes. Yun Luofeng must not be allowed to live. Among all the countries on the mainland, only a few people could break through to the seventh floor. Once they broke through, they would not be far from the eighth floor. The rule of this competition was that whoever broke through to the eighth floor and completed the task within the eighth floor would receive a jade token from the Heavenly Hui Empire. Obtaining this token would prove that one had passed the entire medicine tower. After all, although the medicine tower had a time limit, one had to enter the next floor within half an hour. It wasn't impossible to complete the task ahead of time. For example, if a loser was eliminated from the fifth floor, there might be a genius who had successfully entered the seventh floor. That was why the jade token was used as proof. Whoever obtained the jade token would be first. Time passed. It was already dusk. The door of the medicine tower opened to everyone's anticipation. The dusky sunlight poured down and fell on the girl standing at the entrance of the medicine tower. The girl's clothes were as white as snow, her eyebrows were like a painting, and the corners of her lips were raised in an evil smile. Her beauty was unparalleled. Lu Chenyi forgot that he had lost the competition. He stared blankly at the peerless beauty in front of him. His gentle eyes were filled with amazement. For more than 20 years, there had been countless women by his side, but none of them had been so breathtakingly beautiful. "Miss Yun, you came out." Qing Lu laughed, "It's okay. It's good enough that you were able to enter the seventh floor. Moreover, your array was difficult. Even if you only reached the fourth floor, you would still be able to surpass those who entered the eighth floor." Qing Mu's words made the girl frown. A strange light flashed in her eyes. Just then, Long Yuan's cold voice came from above, "A failure is a failure." She was kicked out of the seventh floor, which proves that she is not first in this competition. But Miss Yun's test was many times more difficult than the others. Qing Lu still wanted to argue for Yun Luofeng. In his opinion, Yun Luofeng deserved the title of champion. Unexpectedly, Long Yuan ignored Qing Mu's words. I don't care what kind of test she has received. Since she is not the first person to break through the 8th level, it means that she has also lost. He raised his chin slightly and looked down at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, do you have any objections to my judgment? Yun Luofeng acted as if he did not see the dragon essence and turned to Greenwood as he said, I just picked up something in the medicine tower, but I don't know what it is, so I took it out. Grandmaster Greenwood, please appraise it. After speaking, Yun Luofeng reached into his clothes and took out a jade pendant, handing it to Qing Mu. When he saw the jade pendant in Qing Mu's hand, Long Yuan's cold and stern expression changed drastically. His voice trembled as he asked, where did you get this jade pendant from? I have already made myself very clear. I picked it up in the medicine tower. Yun Luofeng glanced at Long Yuan evilly and said indifferently, it was also this jade pendant that sent me to the exit. Chapter 991. Qing Mu was stunned. He stared at the words Tianhui Empire on the jade pendant and stared blankly at Yun Luofeng. Miss Yun, what level did you get to? Yun Luofeng frowned and thought for a while, then said, I think I was on the 8th level. After I cured the patients on the 8th level, this jade pendant appeared. I wanted to pick it up and take a look, but as soon as I touched it, I was already at the exit. Boom! Like a bolt out of the blue, the entire square became silent. Everyone's eyes were filled with surprise, shock, and even fanaticism as they stared at Yun Luofeng. Not to mention Lu Qinyi, who didn't understand what was going on. Even Yun Luofeng himself was stunned. He didn't understand the situation before him. You really cured the patients on the 8th level? Qing Mu's breathing quickened as he stared at Yun Luofeng. Under the old man's excited gaze, Yun Luofeng nodded. In actuality, Qing Mu's words were unnecessary. Just the jade pendant that Yun Luofeng had given him was enough to prove this girl's strength. He just couldn't believe it, so he wanted to confirm it again. After getting Yun Luofeng's confirmation, Qing Mu suddenly laughed out loud. Genius, this is definitely an unprecedented genius. The first person to ever do this. Lu Qinyi was stunned. The first person to ever do this. Wasn't Master Qing Mu a bit too exaggerated? Master Qing Mu, the geniuses from the 3 empires also have the strength to complete the 8th level. It's just that they weren't as fast as Yun Luofeng. Doesn't that mean that the geniuses from the 3 empires are unprecedented? Qing Mu snorted, how can those people compare to Miss Yun? Just now, in the illusion, wasn't it very difficult for you to save one person? But did you know that Miss Yun saved 10 patients with different illnesses on each level? And even in such a situation, she was still able to obtain the jade pendant before the others. How dare you say that those people can compare to her? What? Lu Qinyi's face was filled with shock. He couldn't help but take 2 steps back as he stared at Yun Luofeng. No wonder the others looked at him strangely when he said those words. It was no wonder that when Yun Luofeng came out, even the flower addicts who used to surround him also looked at him with fanatical gazes. It turned out that the illusionary realm that Yun Luofeng fell into was not on the same level as his. How could they compare? As far as he knew, Master Greenwood and Master Guiyang had failed to reach the 5th level. Even if the strength of these 2 old men had increased, they still wouldn't be able to reach the 8th level. But not only had Yun Luofeng arrived, but he had also successfully cleared the stage in such a short amount of time. Since ancient times, who could do it? When he thought of this, Lu Qinyi's face turned deathly pale. For the first time, he regretted becoming enemies with Yun Luofeng. Don't forget the bet between us. Yun Luofeng's gaze gradually fell on Lu Qinyi. His lips curved into a smile. Now, do you want to cripple your own arm, or do you want me to help you? Lu Chenyi's face turned pale and he took 2 steps back. Miss Yun, are you really going to push me too far? Force you? No, I'm not forcing you. I'm just fulfilling your wish. Yun Luofeng smiled evilly at Lu Chenyi and took a few steps closer to him. After all, you were the one who proposed this bet. I was forced to accept it. Chapter 992. Yun Luofeng had already walked up to Lu Chenyi and was looking down at him with a slight smile. Lu Chenyi's face turned even paler as if he was being oppressed by the girl's gaze. He looked pleadingly at Imperial Concubine Ling and pleaded, Imperial Concubine, save me. He had not seen all the beauties in the world yet. How could he lose his life here? Imperial Concubine Ling's beautiful face darkened and she glared at Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, the rules of the competition state that members are not allowed to make private bets. All bets are invalid. Yun Luofeng raised his brows. Why haven't I heard of this rule before? Humph, Imperial Concubine Ling snorted, I made this rule in private. You're just ignorant if you haven't heard of it. I'm ordering you not to touch a single hair on Lu Chenyi's head. She slammed her fair, jade-like hand heavily on the table, her willowy eyebrows furrowed and her voice was stern. Lu Chenyi heaved a sigh of relief. With Imperial Concubine Ling's protection, his arm was safe. However, at that moment, a sharp sword light flashed and instantly severed the tendon in Lu Chenyi's arm. Blood spurted out, accompanied by a shrill cry that resounded throughout the world. Everyone was dumbfounded and turned to look at the girl in white who was standing under the gentle breeze. The girl had a faint smile on her face. Her picturesque features were stunning. She smiled at the shocked and angry gazes as her snow-white robe fluttered in the wind. Yun Luofeng. Long Yuan's rage surged into the sky, and he suddenly stood up and berated in a stern voice. How audacious of you! You actually dare to commit murder in court. Guards, seize her. Qing Mu and the others were also shocked by Yun Luofeng's behavior and smiled bitterly. This girl really didn't want to suffer any losses. Since Lu Chenyi had agreed to make a bet with her, she must make it come true. Your Imperial Majesty, Qing Mu sighed and stepped forward. He cupped his fists and said, Miss Yun is not to be blamed for this. Lu Chenyi provoked her first. Besides, if Miss Yun is the one who fails this time, he will not let her off so easily either. Your Majesty, your Ladyship, will you protect her when the time comes? Imperial Concubine Ling's eyes darkened. She said coldly, I've always been fair. If Yun Luofeng had lost, I wouldn't have let Lu Chenyi cripple her arm. But she dared to disobey this consort's orders. This kind of woman must be planted. Greenwood was so angry that his entire body trembled. He wanted to plead for Yun Luofeng, but the girl's lazy voice drifted into his ears. Master Qing Mu, this has nothing to do with you. Don't get involved. Greenwood was startled and raised his head to look at Yun Luofeng's back. A bitter smile appeared on his face. How could he not know that this lass was afraid that Her Majesty would vent his anger on him, so she did not want him to get involved? Did you just say that I broke Lu Chenyi's arm? Yun Luofeng smiled and looked at Long Yuan and Imperial Concubine Ling, then I'd like to ask you, which eye did you see it with? Long Yuan was stunned. Indeed, they had only seen a flash of light and Lu Chenyi's arm had been broken. As for who had done it, it had not been revealed. Who else could it be but you? Imperial Concubine Ling said coldly, Lu Chenyi made a bet with you. Moreover, you said that you would break his arm. Now that his tendons have been cut, no one would do it except for you. Chapter 993. Yun Luofeng shrugged helplessly. If you want to frame me, I have no other choice. Maybe Lu Chenyi is too arrogant and has made a lot of enemies. Maybe someone saw the fight between me and Lu Chenyi, and that's why he crippled his hand. Arrogant. Everyone's mouths twitched when they heard this. Lu Chenyi wasn't as arrogant as you, was he? But what Yun Luofeng said was true. No one saw her make a move just now, but Lu Chenyi was already crippled. Perhaps someone really did it in secret, trying to frame her. You, Imperial concubine Ling pointed angrily at Yun Luofeng. Her beautiful face was filled with anger, and her beautiful eyes flashed with anger. Beloved concubine, Venerable Dragon Source grasped Imperial concubine Ling's hand and turned his gaze to Yun Luofeng. Yun Luofeng, if you don't want people to know, don't do it. We will send people to investigate this matter thoroughly. If they find out that you were the one who did it, you can forget about leaving the Tianyi Empire. He snorted, stood up, and walked down the platform with the help of a palace maid. If Yun Luofeng really injured Lu Chenyi, then he could take her down. However, no one saw Yun Luofeng attack. If he cheated, it would definitely cause dissatisfaction among the nations. This was something that Long Yuan was very clear about. On the platform, Imperial concubine Ling slowly stood up. She clenched her fists and glared at Yun Luofeng. She would let this girl have her way now. When the martial arts competition came, she would die a horrible death. Master! Master! Sister-in-law! Yi Shima and the others quickly walked to Yun Luofeng's side. Their eyes were full of joy. Sister-in-law, this time, you won the championship for our Heavenly Cloud Nation. You will always be our pride. Over the years, even if Yi Shima was not in Kargalik, he would be summoned back before the National League tournament. Unfortunately, the people of Heavenly Cloud Nation were always at the bottom of the list, whether it was the medical competition or the martial arts competition. They had never been shaken. But now, with the appearance of Yun Luofeng, not only did the Heavenly Cloud Nation break away from its position of being the laggard for thousands of years, but also rushed to the forefront in an instant. How could he not be excited? The surrounding people also looked at each other. In the end, a genius from a certain country mustered up his courage and walked in front of Yun Luofeng. His face was full of shame. I'm sorry. I even talked about you like that before. I'm really sorry. The genius girl lowered her head to Yun Luofeng and bowed deeply. In the mainland, if one wanted to gain the respect of others, then one must possess enough strength to shock the world. Otherwise, one could only face the mockery and ridicule of others forever. However, once you display super strength, even those who used to look down on you will look at you in a different light. Yun Luofeng glanced at the woman in front of him and his lips curled into a smile. The curve of her lips was very beautiful, but it was also very evil. If Yun Luofeng was a man, his smile would definitely enchant the hearts of many young girls. As long as you don't rely on subjective assumptions to rely on one person in the future. Also, if you want to find a man, you need to keep your eyes open. A person like Lu Chenyi is destined to be fickle. The genius girl's face turned red. She lowered her head and said, I won't worship him anymore. Chapter 994. As a physician, she admired Lu Chenyi not only because of his handsome appearance, but also because of his talent as a physician. Apart from the geniuses of the three empires, Lu Chenyi was perhaps the most talented physician. However, Yun Luofeng's appearance shattered all of this. The woman stole a glance at Yun Luofeng from the corner of her eyes shining with longing. A genius like this was worthy of her lifetime's admiration. Even if the other party was also a woman, is there anything else? Yun Luofeng raised his eyebrows as he looked at the woman who had yet to leave. The woman's face turned even redder, and she replied in a voice as soft as a mosquito, no. Nothing. With that, she hurriedly left. However, before she left, she turned to look at Yun Luofeng again. TSK. Yi Shima laughed heartily. He put his arm around Yun Luofeng's shoulder and moved his head closer. Sister-in-law, it seems like you like both men and women. Yun Luofeng's face darkened, and he pushed Yi Shima's hand away from his shoulder. If Yun Shao sees what you're doing, he'll definitely throw you 1,000,000 miles away. The corner of Yi Shima's mouth twitched, and he awkwardly lowered his arm. That second brother of mine is not only a vinegar jar, but I also don't know who he inherited his cold personality from. His adoptive mother was such a domineering person, but she gave birth to a son with facial paralysis. However, the only person who can cure his facial paralysis is you, sister-in-law. Yi Shima winked at Yun Luofeng as he spoke with a smile. Yun Luofeng's eyes warmed as he thought of Yun Shao. His black eyes were like the stars in the night sky, bright and piercingly bright. Not far away, Xiao Yuqing's cold eyes lingered on the young girl. There was a hint of infatuation in her eyes. However, the light in the young girl's eyes was like a thorn that pierced his heart, causing him to clench his fists. While he was staring at Yun Luofeng, he did not know that there was also an infatuated gaze staring at him from behind. After the competition ended, Yun Luofeng returned to the courtyard. Before she had time to rest, there was a commotion outside the courtyard. There were even sounds of fighting. Fire, let's go. Let's go and see what's going on. After Yun Luofeng said this, he slammed the door and left. The quarreling people in the courtyard heard the movement behind them. They all stopped and turned to look at her, sister-in-law. Yi Shima was stunned. Did we disturb your rest? Yun Luofeng did not say anything. He narrowed his eyes and looked at the uninvited guest opposite Yi Shima. A dangerous glint flashed across his eyes. Who can tell me what happened? Hee. A sneer suddenly sounded out, and then the group of people moved aside. It wasn't long before a tall figure appeared within her field of vision. Qiu Feihua. She already knew that since she injured Lu Qinyi, the people from Lanxiang Nation wouldn't let her off. Yun Luofeng. Qiu Feihua slightly raised his chin and arrogantly said, "You touched the people of my Lanxiang Nation. How should I settle this debt with you?" Yun Luofeng curled his lips. Which eye of yours saw that I injured him? It doesn't matter if you don't admit it, as long as I believe that you injured him. Qiu Feihua's eyes were filled with viciousness. Your Tianyun nation will always be at the bottom. How dare you injure my people? Honestly speaking, in this physician tournament, are you all going to be in last place once again? Chapter 995. Qiu Feihua's words startled the people around him, and a trace of awkwardness flashed across their faces. Qiu Feihua didn't go to the competition today. Instead, he went to the brothel to have fun. When he heard that Yun Luofeng injured Lu Qinyi, he immediately rushed over in anger. As a result, he still didn't know what happened in the competition, Your Highness, Tianyun Nation. A guard was afraid that Qiu Feihua would continue to embarrass himself, so he wanted to tell him about the competition. However, he was interrupted by Qiu Feihua's impatient voice. What's wrong with Tianyun Nation? There's no way to survive after offending my Lanxiang Nation. I'm guessing that Lu Qinyi must have defeated Yun Luofeng in the competition, which made her so angry that she wanted to kill him. If you really can't afford to lose, then don't come to the competition to embarrass yourself. The guards who were originally aggressive were so ashamed when they heard Qiu Feihua's words that they couldn't wait to find a hole to hide in. Only those who followed Qiu Feihua to the brothel didn't know what was going on. They still stood proudly next to Qiu Feihua. Yi Shima was dumbfounded. He blinked his eyes, and his face was full of confusion. Is this Qiu Feihua stupid? How could he say that his sister-in-law lost to Lu Chenyi and hurt him because she was angry? Lu Chenyi asked you to come and avenge him. Didn't he tell you about the competition? He couldn't help but ask the question that was in his mind. What situation? Qiu Feihua snorted. I don't need him to tell me. Yun Luofeng, if you really can't afford to lose, go back to your mother and drink milk. Don't embarrass yourself here, ah. Qiu Feihua laughed wildly. However, only a few people in the Lanxiang Nation's team laughed with him. The others were so embarrassed that they wanted to kill themselves. How could they laugh? Embarrass themselves. You're the one who's embarrassing yourself. However, Qiu Feihua was their master, so they didn't dare to show their displeasure. Gradually, Yun Luofeng's courtyard was surrounded by a lot of people. Some of them had participated in the competition, so when they heard Qiu Feihua's words, they couldn't help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Qiu Feihua frowned and looked coldly at the person who had laughed. He said fiercely, is this prince wrong? This Yun Luofeng was someone who didn't even dare to admit defeat. The Heavenly Cloud Nation is also the weakest nation in the past 10,000 years. Suddenly, a swift and fierce gust of wind assaulted him. When Qiu Feihua came back to his senses, he saw a foot right in front of him. His pupils suddenly widened, and just as he was about to curse out in anger, the kick sent him flying. With a bang, his body fell to the ground in a sorry state, right in front of a pair of toes. TSK, youngsters nowadays are really violent. Qiu Feihua, who originally had a belly full of anger, immediately flew into a rage when he heard this aged voice. He cursed loudly, where did this old man come from? Hurry up and scram for this prince. Otherwise, be careful of this prince. He quickly climbed to his feet and turned around, wanting to continue cursing at the old man in front of him. Unexpectedly, a familiar face entered his line of sight, causing his eyes to widen and his face to fill with terror. Otherwise what? Guiyang smiled and asked kindly. The old man's kind smile made Qiu Feihua's heart tremble, and he almost cried out in fear. Go! Master Guiyang, why are you here? Chapter 996. Guiyang smiled faintly, I am the referee of this competition. Now that the competition is over, I am here to give out the prize. Oh, I see. Qiu Feihua stroked his wildly beating heart and chuckled as he tried to get close to her. Master Guiyang, who is the champion of this competition? Which genius from the three empires is it? Guiyang looked at Qiu Feihua strangely. I said I am here to give out the prize. Why are you asking me who is the champion? Qiu Feihua was stunned for a moment, like a monk scratching his head in confusion. He asked doubtfully, Master Guiyang, are you in the wrong place? This is the courtyard of the Heavenly Cloud Nation. The people from the other two empires do not live here. This old man is not in the wrong place. Guiyang's face sank and said impatiently, the champion of this competition is Yun Luofeng from the Heavenly Cloud Nation. Boom! It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck Qiu Feihua's head, causing the smiling Qiu Feihua to be petrified. Champion of the competition. Yun Luofeng. Impossible, the Heavenly Cloud Nation is at the bottom of the world, how could they be the champion of the competition? Master Guiyang, you must be mistaken. It is impossible for the Heavenly Cloud Nation to be the champion. Only the geniuses from the three empires have this kind of strength. Qiu Feihua swallowed hard, his back was already soaked with cold sweat, and his teeth were trembling. He really can't associate Yun Luofeng with the champion? Guiyang glanced at Qiu Feihua coldly. I am afraid that Lu Chenyi from your Lanxiang Nation knows this better. He made a bet with Miss Yun, and if he lost, he would have to break one of his arms. Before you question this old man, go back and see Lu Chenyi first. Qiu Feihua staggered and almost fell to the ground. Lu Chenyi was injured not because Yun Luofeng lost the competition, but because of the bet between the two. Of them. Suddenly, he turned to the guards behind him and said angrily, "Do you know the truth? Why didn't you tell this prince the truth?" Thinking of his behavior just now, Qiu Feihua really wanted to find a hole to hide in. At least it was better than being embarrassed here. The guards were suffering in silence. They had wanted to remind His Highness, but His Highness had interrupted them. They were afraid of angering His Highness, so they didn't dare to say another word. Who knew that His Highness would push the blame onto them? "I'll deal with you when we get back," Qiu Feihua said fiercely. He then turned to Yun Luofeng and snorted, "Don't think that just because you won the doctor's convention, it proves that your heavenly cloud nation is strong. If you lose the next 2 matches, you will still be at the bottom. Let's go." He flung his sleeves forcefully and led a group of guards away like stray dogs. He no longer had the arrogance of charging over. When Qiu Feihua returned to Lanxiang Nation's territory, the first thing he did was to find Lu Chenyi to settle the debt. If it wasn't for Lu Chenyi, he wouldn't have lost his face in front of everyone. Poor Lu Chenyi. He had already lost an arm. Now, he had to face Qiu Feihua's anger. It was only at this moment that he felt regret in his heart. More than that, he felt endless despair. On the contrary, Yun Luofeng returned to her room under the gaze of everyone. She immediately closed the door and declined everyone's visit. She was preparing for tomorrow's competition. Chapter 997. Guyang smiled faintly. "I am the referee of this competition. Now that the competition is over, I am here to give out the prize." "Oh, I see." Qiu Feihua stroked his wildly beating heart and chuckled as he tried to get close to her. "Master Guyang, who is the champion of this competition? Which genius from the 3 empires is it?" Guyang looked at Qiu Feihua strangely. "I said I am here to give out the prize. Why are you still asking me who is the champion?" Qiu Feihua was stunned for a moment. Like a monk scratching his head, he asked doubtfully, "Master Guyang, are you in the wrong place? This is the courtyard of Heavenly Cloud Nation. The people from the 2 empires do not live here. This old man is not in the wrong place." Guyang's face sank and said impatiently, "The champion of this competition is Yun Luofeng from Heavenly Cloud Nation." Boom! It was as if a bolt of lightning had struck Qiu Feihua, causing the smiling Qiu Feihua to be petrified. Champion of the competition. Yun Luofeng. Impossible. Heavenly Cloud Nation has been at the bottom for thousands of years. How could they be the champion of the competition? Master Guyang, you must be mistaken. It is impossible for Heavenly Cloud Nation to be the champion. Only the geniuses from the 3 empires have this kind of strength. Qiu Feihua swallowed hard. His back was already soaked with cold sweat, and his teeth were trembling. He really couldn't associate Yun Luofeng with the champion. Guyang glanced at Qiu Feihua coldly. "I am afraid that Lu Chenyi from your Lanxiang nation knows more about this matter. He made a bet with Miss Yun, and if he lost, he would have to cut off one of his arms. Before you question this old man, go back and see Lu Chenyi first." Qiu Feihua staggered and almost fell to the ground. Wasn't Lu Chenyi injured because Yun Luofeng lost the duel and flew into a rage? But because of the bet between the 2 of them. Suddenly, he turned to the guards behind him and said angrily, "Do you know the truth? Why didn't you tell this prince the truth?" Thinking of his behavior just now, Qiu Feihua really wanted to find a hole to hide in. At least it was better than embarrassing himself here. The guards were suffering in silence. They had wanted to remind His Highness, but His Highness had interrupted them. They were afraid of angering His Highness, so they didn't dare to say another word. Who knew that His Highness would push the blame onto them? "I'll deal with you when we get back," Qiu Feihua said fiercely. He then turned to Yun Luofeng and snorted, don't think that just because you won the doctor's convention, it proves that your Heavenly Cloud Nation is strong. If you lose the next 2 matches, you will still be at the bottom. Let's go. He flung his sleeves forcefully and led a group of guards away like stray dogs. He no longer had the arrogance of charging over. When Qiu Feihua returned to Lanxiang Nation's territory, the first thing he did was to find Lu Qinyi to settle the debt. If it wasn't for Lu Qinyi, he wouldn't have lost his face in front of everyone. Poor Lu Qinyi. He had already lost an arm. Now, he had to face Qiu Feihua's anger. It was only at this moment that he felt regret in his heart. More than that, there was endless despair. On the contrary, Yun Luofeng returned to her room under the gaze of everyone. Immediately, she closed the door and declined everyone's visit. She was preparing for tomorrow's competition.